Sadly, many of us were fooled many, many times. Thank you for being here, everybody. Good morning, good morning, good morning. We know you've got many choices to make every day, and we're so grateful that you choose to spend some time with us. So thank you, thank you, thank you. You know the drill. Tapping is clapping, liking is loving, sharing is caring. Don't forget, you want to support the channel. You can do that through a crowdfunding, which is available at Factsstillmatter at all the various things that exist in cyberspace. Also, there's a gifting goal today. Don't forget about that. We're going to try to avoid our restrictions today that we get on the daily. I don't know where they came from, so we're going to try to change things up a little, a bit. So I just need your help. If you could continue to engage in the live, and that would mean tapping and sharing and liking, etc., and also using the tools that TikTok provides, which are some of the gifts from TikTok, that will help us remain engaged. And also, don't forget, we are crowdfunded. Head over to the link tree that's in my bio. You can find the link to the Discord. If for some reason it doesn't work, just copy it, put it in a URL, put it in a browser, or reach out to one of our amazing moderators, and they can help you too. Items in the merch store, including the iDescent shirt. Find the link to that also in the link tree that's in the bio, or you can go directly to factsstillmatter.site. That will take you there too. Welcome. Thank you for being here. We appreciate you. So today, obviously, it's a 5-year anniversary of J6, and it's really hard to even imagine that. And I was thinking about this as to how we want to do this today. Our goal is to try to remain live. So I'm probably going to avoid playing some of the video, just because I think it's necessary that we talk about it. But playing the video might be a bit problematic for the algorithm. So I will play some sound for you. We will kind of go back through the timeline. We're going to talk about the media messaging as to, as we've discussed many times in this show, the discernment between propaganda, disinformation, and misinformation. Well, we can look at J6 as an example of all the things connected to that day and why so many people fell for the various lies that were promoted, including from the president of the United States at the time. We're going to debunk a lot of the lies that were told. A lot of people still perpetuating those lies today. And think about this, we're 5 years away from that date and over 5 years away from the last election. And the current president has still not accepted defeat. So it's like, here's where we sit 5 years later. So we're going to talk about it all today. And I think this would be an amazing contrast if you say, which one does democracy look like? You get millions of people protesting peacefully for the No Kings rally twice in the last year. And then you get insurrectionist, riotous traitors who, because they were lied to for weeks, months leading up to that day, including on that day, they were conditioned and they were brainwashed into thinking that they were defenders of democracy, that they were patriots. They weren't. They were insurrectionist traitors, every single one that went there that day under the intention to overthrow the results of a free and fair election. Our democracy, our country, we made a couple of clear decisions back when our country was founded. We said we were going to stand for peaceful transfers of power and due process under the law. That's really about it. Everybody gets due process, and our democracy to function properly, to be a leader in the world, would be to peacefully transfer power. Well, guess what? Yeah. So we're going to get into that. We're going to get into that today. Like I said, I'm going to navigate this. I want to let everybody know, by the way, if you don't follow my backup, please do so. You'll find the link to that also in the link tree that's in my bio. It's the 2.0, so it's Factsstillmatter 2.0. Please consider following that. I would really, really appreciate that. And again, thank you for being here. Okay, so before we get into all of that, I just want to kind of just level set, and then we'll kind of talk about some more blowback from the illegal invasion of Venezuela. We'll talk about that a little bit. Stephen Miller's doing the rounds. We've got some contradictions from Fox News being called out, more lies and rhetoric from the president. But I just want to talk about J6 in as part of a bigger picture, right? I want people to think about this for a second. Under normal conditions, right? Under normal conditions in our country, would any one item connected to Donald Trump have, let me rephrase that. Because there are so many, whether it be J6, whether it be the Stormy Daniels situation, whether it be, election denial, whether it be, paying deference to Putin, the numerous lies, lying about C-19, fraud cases, criminal convictions, felony charges, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's now we're in this administration. Obvious examples of corruption, lies and cover up of the Jeffrey files, his relationships with Jeffrey Epstein, his the things that he said about women, the things that he said about the poor community, the things that he said about the black community, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There are so many. If any other political candidate in our history had ever said any one of those things, or had ever done any one of those things, or even had implied any one of those things, their career would be over. But for some reason, because millions of Americans do not have a line, they will just allow this to perpetuate. They do not have a line. They do not care about democracy. They think this is democracy, right? And that they think this are riotous mobs. They think what Donald Trump is doing in regards to violating people's human rights, constitutional rights, and civil rights is protecting the nation. They think what doing by kidnapping foreign leaders, and by the way, I have a different opinion on all that since I thought about it for the last 24 hours. They think that is protecting our nation, not investing in healthcare, not making sure that we're fed, not making sure that people have access to capital, not making sure that there's affordable housing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's all about their money grab. They think that Joe Biden and the Bidens were the Biden crime family. Meanwhile, the entire Trump family has enriched themselves by $4.5 billion since taking office this year, including sweetheart deals that Don Jr. just got through the Department of Defense, a company whose board he just joined with no qualifications. That was the claim that y'all made against Hunter. And now Don Jr. is doing thank you, Swishy Raiders. Hearts in the chat for Swishy Raiders, please. And Don Jr. is doing the exact same thing, only he's making tenfold the amount of money that you claimed that Hunter Biden made. It's just one thing after another. It's just one thing after another. And this thing, the 5-year anniversary of J6, I think tells you everything you need to know. Because what the president and his followers and his supporters and people in his administration and at his campaign were able to do, were able to convince what we thought at the time were patriotic Americans, people who defended the flag, people who took oaths to it, people who swore an oath to the Constitution, veterans, law enforcement officials, regular everyday citizens who claimed to be patriots, showed up on January 6th, 5 years ago, and attempted a coup, attempted to overthrow the government, attempted to deny one of the foundational principles of our country, the peaceful transfer of power. And I know what they're going to say because we've debunked all this shit. I know what they're going to say. Did the president leave the office? Yes, he did. Yes, he did. He left office because this failed. Just because you attempt a coup and it fails doesn't mean you didn't attempt a coup. So we're going to go through some of the arrests. We're going to talk about the pardons. We're going to talk about some of the crimes committed by people who were pardoned. Some of the most horrible crimes some of the crimes that members of the people that are being protected under the Epstein documents, some crimes that those people are alleged to have committed in connection to the Epstein files. Some of the people that were pardoned by the president have gone around and committed those crimes against children. Some of the people that were pardoned that day. Some of the people that were pardoned that day had criminal records in advance prior to J6. Some of them were out on parole. Some of them had skipped parole hearings. And those people were pardoned under a blanket pardon. But yet this was apparently a threat to democracy? Really? So we're gonna get into all of that. I do want to kind of just back up a second and just kind of address a few things because we still have some churning and burning connected to what's happened in Venezuela. More lies, more misdirections. So we're going to start with Stephen Miller. Stephen Miller was on with Jake Tapper last night, and just the way in which some of these, because Greenland is now in play, apparently. Greenland, Mexico, Cuba. Before I get into that, let me tell you my theory. So I know people are talking about this with the situation with Maduro as a kidnapping. I'm starting to think it was more, thank you. I'm starting to think it was an extraction. Because think of it this way. Dictators know shit. Dictators know where the bodies are buried, literally and figuratively. The 32 Cubans that were unalive were part of his haters know where the bodies are buried, literally and figuratively. The 32 Cubans that were unalive were part of his haters know where the bodies are buried, literally and figuratively. The 32 Cubans that were unalive were part of his security. 2 Cubans that were unalive were part of his security detail. That were unalive were part of his security detail. That were unalive were part of his security detail. That were unalive were part of his security detail. That were unalive were part of his security detail. Keep in mind that the argument that the president has used to a lot of his followers when in pardoning the president of Honduras was that they needed him for intelligence purposes. Right? Okay, sure, I can believe that. It just seems too convenient to just be a kidnapping. And again, 32 Cuban, the majority of them were members of a security detail. So extraction, kidnapping, tomato. I hear you, Dano, but it just seems way too convenient that there will all of a sudden just be this kidnapping, and it only involves President Maduro and his wife. We'll see. I'm sure more information will be sequestered. I'm sure we'll never get the inside baseball stuff. But again, this just brings up to the point which I mentioned earlier. Like any one of these things that are connected to the president, like his supporters will say, well, it's just a witch hunt. All you guys do is go after Trump. Well, it's not something that any of us enjoy doing, but it's maybe stop criming. I don't know. Why would did his wife have bruises, Steph? I don't know. Did she? I don't know. Maybe she fell down a couple days before.
We're treating this as should be the nation that has Greenland as part of our overall security apparatus.
Right, but your wife posted that like hours after the Venezuela operation.
No, but
that's why it's newly relevant.
No, I'll talk with you about it for an hour. I think it's a really important conversation. I just wanted to reset, Jake, by making clear that it has been the formal position of the U.S. government since the beginning of this administration, frankly, going back into the previous Trump administration, that Greenland should be part of the United States. The president has been very clear about that. That is the formal position of the U.S. government.
Right, but can you say that military action against Greenland is off the table?
It wouldn't be military action against Greenland. The Greenland has a population of 30,000 people, Jake. The real question is, by what right does Denmark assert control over Greenland? What is the basis of their territorial claim? What is their basis of having Greenland as a colony of Denmark? The United States is the power of NATO. For the United States to secure the Arctic region, to protect and defend NATO and NATO interests, obviously Greenland should be part of the United States. And so that's a conversation that we're going to have as a country. That's a process we're going to have as a community of nations.
So you can't take it off the table that the U.S. would use military force to seize Greenland. You can't take it off the table.
Jake, I understand you're trying very hard to, which again is your job. I respect it. It's great to get exactly the headline right? That catchy headline.
I'm trying to get an answer to the question.
That says Miller refuses to rule out.
Yeah, well, answer it. Bro, the reason he's asking you the questions is because you're being a fucking snake. Answer the damn question. Okay? The president has made it clear. So why can't you just answer? By the way, in case you guys don't know this, one of the obvious tells when you hear someone's uncomfortable laughter, you know they're caught. So when you're debating people in TikTok, on the TikTok streets, and you start to hear the uncomfortable laughter, or if you're watching someone's live and they're called out on something and you hear that little uncomfortable laughter, that's a tell.
The United States should have Greenland as part of the United States.
Oh.
There's no need to even think or talk about this in the context that you're asking of a military operation. Nobody's going to fight the United States militarily over the future of Greenland.
So we're just going to take it. Okay. We're just going to take it. Again, just to reiterate, one of the singular most important issues that the president ran on was no new wars, no more interventionism, none of it. And here we are. Here we are again doing the exact same thing that we've always done. I went through this exercise with you guys yesterday about how, there's not a good track record of regime change. And I know that our friends on the right now are saying, well, it's not regime change. Like, what would you call it?
Sign of guys. I want to remind you guys, today is the 5-year anniversary of J6. And I cannot stress this enough. Protect your mental health. And I'm not going to make this about me. I was abused by somebody who was there. And this shit, it's messed up. Do not engage with MAGA on the streets and in real life, because they will come after you. They are unhinged. And this guy, Stephen Miller, I really haven't done background on him. Steve, you know more than I do. But January 6th, was a coup attempt. We have the coup inside the White House right now. They're in the White House right now. This is the and we can't say, oh, what if, MAGA is going to get worse? No, it's worse right now. It's bad because what they're doing in Minnesota, like what, they're pulling, Medicaid funds for low income Americans, like everyone's a hostage and you have to protect yourselves. I'm telling you, we are in very scary times because I'm listening to this. I had some NPR on this morning. And I used to be one of those to listen to the other side. There is no GOP. There isn't. And I rewatched what happened 5 years ago. The guy who abused me, and he went with two or three other friends. They were bused from Cleveland to DC. One of his friends was contacted by the FBI. She was on the Capitol steps. I have a photograph of it. And I have texts of him. Like it's today is a very triggering day. I'm going to say that.
Yeah, it's very no doubt. Yeah, no doubt. And we're going to be careful how we cover it, just because I want to keep the live up. So we're probably not going to. Thank you, Rainey. Appreciate you. We're not going to play the video. We'll probably just play audio. But I'm sorry that happened.
For all of us, it is. Yeah. For all of us, it is.
Yep.
But I tell you, for me, I literally got away from somebody like that. Just not to bring it back to all the other stuff, but it's, he was brainwashing. This is it's not a political party. It's an ideology. Yes, it's a coup. This is a total
psyop.
Yes, you listen to Stephen Miller. He gaslights, he manipulates. How just we're in trouble. And I tell you, if we don't get the midterms, and Democrats in the midterms, if they don't get to work, and I will be calling Summer Lee's office, the deputy director and everything, they got to get to work over there and give a damn about us. Period. So I appreciate you always, Steve, and thank you, friends in the chat. I love you guys very much.
Thank you, friend. Have a good day. Be safe out there.
You too.
We got our gifting warning again. We don't really know what it is. I don't know what the situation is, but what I do need, guys, is your engagement. So please continue to like and share like crazy. Tapping is clapping, liking is loving, sharing is caring. Don't forget, we are crowd-funded. If you want some help, if you want to support the channel, best way to do that is through the various things that exist. By the way, all of my socials are at Factsstillmatter. Please consider subscribing to YouTube. We are streaming on YouTube. We are also streaming on Twitch. Please consider, let's be completely fucking real, because there's a massive NATO base in Greenland that helps patrol the Arctic or sort of supervises the Arctic. That's a massive win for Putin, no doubt about it. There is no denying it. Don't think the Venezuela intervention, or what the fuck you want to call it, doesn't help Putin out as well, because it does. It absolutely does, because of the OPEC relationship, sanctions against Russia, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Again, we talked about this a little bit yesterday. The entire world order is changing in favor of autocrats led, I shit you not, Canada. Again, Canada under threat. Canada, of course, shares fucking territory with Russia. They patrol each other. Don't forget about the conversations about Alaska going back to Russia that the president has made, all these kinds of things. Again, Greenland, there's a massive NATO base in Greenland. It's not just about the resources there. It's not just about the oil. It's not just about rare earth. It's about strategery, as W would say. So let's not kid ourselves. We know exactly what's fucking going on. All right. So I do want to, like we spent time yesterday. And I want to use this opportunity to just say this once again. I'm not here to debate the legality of what happened in Venezuela. We've certainly have enough examples of why we believe, based on war powers, based on international law, based on the use of the military without congressional approval. There's all kinds of things that we can sit here and debate for hours on legality. I'm not interested in doing that. Instead, what I'm interested in focusing on is the hypocrisy, specifically because we had an entire 10 years worth of rhetoric coming from the president and MAGA and people around him saying no more never-ending wars, no more intervention, no more imperialism, no more regime change, etc. And here we are, doing exactly that, and yet his base will still say, well, you guys support dictators. No, we don't. So like I said before, I would love for you to put pressure on them, make them defend it. See what I mean? Here you go. You see what I mean? It's a perfect example. Perfect example. You see, Sage? Perfect example that you said that. Host, what war are we in? This is the argument now. This is the argument. So the use of the military on a foreign country, again, the weird part about this is you're happy to fund incurgencies, millions of dollars, putting American lives at risk to do what? And your argument is, what war are we in? Bombing Iran and Iraq and Syria and Yemen, Somalia, Nigeria, but that's fine, right? This is what I'm talking about. This is the hypocrisy. If you say you don't want military intervention, if you don't want the United States to be the world's police anymore, and your argument now, because that's exactly what's happened, is what war are we in? We haven't been technically at war based on the Constitution since World War II, when the last time Congress actually declared war. But walk up to a veteran from Iraq or Afghanistan or Somalia or wherever else and tell them that we weren't in a war. Why again would you change the name of the Department of Defense to Department of War? Why would the assistant manager to war crimes, Pete Hegseth, constantly refer to the military as war fighters, constantly refer to them as the warrior ethos? Why would you do that? That's what I'm talking about. That's the danger that we face now. I'm not going to say that we face it. This is the hypocrisy. This is the hypocrisy. If you're using weapons of war, fighter jets, missiles, boom booms, if you're using those things, what would you call it? So let them do their shit, all right? So I put some sound from Tulsi Gabbard yesterday from years ago when she said, no more of this shit, no more intervention, no more regime change, none of it. That was back in 2019. That was one of the reasons that she was brought into the cabinet. That was one of the reasons that she became a prominent figure within the Trump administration, because that aligned with what Donald Trump has said. It goes back years. I think I've got some sound from years ago. That was his entire one of the things that I've agreed with him on over the years, because he was opposed to the war in Iraq. He said, this is ridiculous. Why do we keep putting our military men and women in harm's way over someone else's business? That's what he ran on. That immigration and, no new wars, immigration and the economy. So here we are. So Tulsi Gabbard this was just a few weeks ago. She was talking about this. Once again, probably not either not being brought in the loop or not being, consulted, but this was her defending the president.
Way of thinking is something we hope is in the rearview mirror and something that has held us back for too long. For decades, our foreign policy has been trapped in a counterproductive and endless cycle of regime change or nation building. It was a one-size-fits-all approach of toppling regimes, trying to impose our system of governance on others, intervene in conflicts that were barely understood, and walk away with more enemies than allies. The results: trillions spent, countless lives lost, and in many cases, a creation of greater security threats. The rise of Islamist terrorist groups like ISIS. President Trump was elected by the American people to put an end to this. And from day one, he has showed a very different way to conduct foreign policy.
Okay, so here you are. I know we can't send gifts. The gifts thing has been suspended. I don't know what to say, friends. My apologies. You want to support the channel instead of a gift, you can certainly use the various things that exist out there in cyberspace, which are all at Factsstillmatter, and I appreciate you. Never expected, always appreciated. So that's really interesting. That just a few short months ago, that is the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, being consistent, because that's what she's always said. No more American interventionism. And just the comment that I pinned just a few minutes ago was when someone said, tell us what war we're in. This is the defense now. This is the defense. Two things can be true, right? Two things can be true. Nicolas Maduro, a horrible human being, a dictator, no doubt about it. I will never speak as someone, I can never speak on behalf of the Venezuelan citizens, but we know that a lot of the protests are not coming, a lot of the cheering and celebrating are not coming from people in Venezuela. They're really coming from people that are Venezuelans outside the country who may have left because of Maduro. But now the argument or the spin that MAGA in particular are going to try to use is, what war are we in? I mean, it's crazy. It's just crazy. It is true. You look up BLM riots, right? Exactly. See, this is what I'm talking about. So we're gonna dunk on that today. I'm glad you're here. You should sit down. You should make some coffee or whatever you drink. I don't even know. But anyway, that's kind of this little bubble that they find themselves in now, attempting once again, because there is no line, attempting to justify this, attempting to justify kidnapping or extracting a foreign leader. What war are we in? Okay, so that was Tulsi. So let's talk about this is real time dunking. So we've got people going on Fox saying this is not about oil. This is not about oil. This is about protecting our sovereignty. Only to find out that just a couple hours later, the president dunks on that. So this person is who's this guy? I don't know, some talking head that appeared on the Fox and Friends, and we'll just listen. And then just a couple hours later, the president had the press conference dunking on this statement.
The commentary by President Trump.
Larger attack if we need to do so. So Venezuela unilaterally seized and stole American oil, American assets, and American platforms, costing us billions and billions of dollars. We built Venezuela oil industry with American talent, drive, and skill, and the socialist regime stole it from us during those previous administrations, and the massive oil infrastructure was taken like we were babies, and we didn't do anything about it.
Okay.
Deadly serious about getting back the oil that was stolen from us.
The confiscation of American oil.
That's
We're going to rebuild the oil infrastructure, which will cost billions of dollars. It'll be paid for by the oil companies directly. They will be reimbursed for what they're doing, but it's going to be paid with it. You know, they stole our oil. We built that whole industry there. But in terms of other countries that want oil, we're in the oil business. We're going to sell it to them. We're not going to say we're not going to. In other words, we'll be selling oil probably in much larger doses because they couldn't produce very much because their infrastructure was so bad. So we'll be selling large amounts of oil to other countries, many of whom are using it now. The oil companies are going to go in. They're going to spend money. We're going to take back the oil that, frankly, we should have taken back a long time ago. A lot of money is coming out of the ground. We're going to get reimbursed for all of that. We're going to get reimbursed for everything we spend.
We are? So, again, two people on Fox just hours before that press conference saying, it's not about oil. It's not about oil. And then Pete, the president, Marco said, oh, yeah, it's absolutely about oil. And I just want to point something out. You heard the president say that. Oil companies, U.S. oil companies, although there's lots of talk about ExxonMobil not necessarily being interested, but American oil companies going there, tapping into the ground, taking oil out, and then being reimbursed by whom? By their sales. So they get the funding to be able to do that because of you and me. Taxpayer subsidies. Subsidies for corporations so they can save their money and they can go and do this, enrich themselves, sell the oil, and make a profit. What do we get? We don't get fucking shit. We pay for it. We pay for them to do it, and they get the profits. It's like you set up your lemonade stand. I'll make all the lemonade. I'll invest in buying all the lemonade pouches and the carafe and all the cups. And then your neighbor comes along and takes all the cash and says, hey, what a great lemonade stand we set up. Again, because our friends on the right have just been conditioned to tell whatever Trump tells them, it's fine. You guys don't need me to tell you that. But that's the model now. He said it himself. American oil companies are going to go in because they've been afforded government welfare and handouts, tax breaks, subsidies. They're basically they can use taxpayer dollars while Americans are starving, while Medicaid, Medicare costs are being Medicare is being cut. ACA subsidies. You know, I got my first statement yesterday. Really, really nice. Yep, $1,100. An additional cost for insurance monthly. $1,100. Awesome. Anybody got an extra $12,000 annually that they can just use to put towards healthcare? But don't worry. We're subsidizing American oil companies so that they can get richer. But nothing to see here, right? Once again, because the MAGA echo chamber does not always talk about each other or talk to each other. You've got people out there trying to defend the president saying, this isn't about oil. And then just 2 hours later, it's absolutely about oil. Yeah. So that's one.
Two, and
this is another example. This is Representative Ryan, who was talking about Marco Rubio and what his statements were regarding their invasion, kidnapping, or whatever the fuck you want to call it in Venezuela. Here you go.
Oscar, you were in some of these past classified briefings. Did they ever convey to you what the objective was, or what did the administration say when they were talking about Venezuela and the ultimate goal?
Well, one, we've had to fight to get any information from the administration, which defies the Constitution. Two, in the most recent classified briefing, which I was in and happened right before Christmas, Marco Rubio personally, explicitly lied to me and the Congress and to the people as representatives. We asked over and over, what is the larger plan? Is there an effort at regime change being planned? We know, given the sophistication of this operation, the reporting that's happened, that was well in the works.
So again, you get the Secretary of State, who AKA the interim Venezuelan president, when you had conversation with members of Congress, you just lied. Okay. Yeah, nothing to see here, though. This is Jason Crow, who went on Fox News. I really like Jason Crow. I want to hear more of him. He's great. He's a great public speaker. This is how members of Congress should answer questions when pressed by Fox in particular. And he fact checks her to her face.
1989. As we've just heard many prominent Democrats do.
The Maduro regime, as it was constructed, exists almost in its entirety as we sit here today in Venezuela.
So they should have taken out the whole thing.
No, I'm not saying that at all.
So we should take out no one.
What I'm saying is I don't believe it's in our immediate interest that Americans want us to be engaged in another nation-building quagmire like we have done for 20 years.
You have about 100,000 Americans dying of drug overdose, most of those drugs coming from Venezuela and other places, Colombia certainly as well.
That's actually not true.
That's not
true. It's not true that 100,000 Americans.
The majority of the deaths.
Did you catch that gaslight in there? And he's like, no fucking way.
By drugs in America are the result of meth and fentanyl. Almost none of that comes from Venezuela.
So you're okay with massive amounts of cocaine traffic coming into the United States from Venezuela?
No, I'm not saying that either. What I'm saying is if we want a real drug strategy, if we want to stop fentanyl and meth, which is largely what's killing our children and devastating our communities, then we need a real drug strategy to do that.
That's how you dunk on it. No, I didn't say that. It's not what I said at all. And then her little attempt to gaslight. Right? That's how you do it. That's how you answer these questions. That's how you respond to that bullshit. It's not about schmugs. It never fucking was. It never was. It never was. You guys are the smartest chat on TikTok. I don't need to convince you of that. You know that. It was never about that. If you truly wanted to address it, then you would address it at home. You would expand access to treatment centers. I would go so far, I fully support safe injection sites. You expand access to mental health instead of cutting it. Unlike what the Republicans did and Donald Trump defunded the police, instead of cutting funding for community policing, you would increase it. You would add drug counselors. You would add substance abuse counselors. You would open up more treatment centers. But nope. Can't do that. Instead, we're just going to lie. In fact, not only are they lying, but they've got people that are defending them that are lying. Like literally people going on Fox News and saying, "Oh, this is about protecting our democracy and making sure that, that there's no more schmugs coming into the country." That's fucking bullshit. I mean, literally, as a reminder, the Republican Party and Donald Trump defunded the police. You don't need to believe my rhetoric. You can just look at the big beautiful bill and you can find where they cut community policing programs. Why would they do that? The Law and Order Party? Oh yeah, the Law and Order Party. Forgot all about that. Yeah. Okay. Here's Mike Johnson, because as you know, Mike Johnson doesn't know shit. My little bitch boy finally back to fucking work. By the way, Congress first day open was yesterday, and there was nothing on their fucking schedule. So this is my bitch boy trying to answer questions about whether or not what happened in Venezuela's regime change.
This is not occupy Venezuela. So how is the United States going to run Venezuela, like the president said repeatedly, saying that the United States is in charge of Venezuela? And how much is this going to cost the United States taxpayers in terms of dollars and troops?
Look, some of these things were discussed in the SCIF. I want to say that the way that this is being described, I think it's accurate. This is not a regime change. This is a demand for change of behavior by a regime.
Listen to that. Listen to that. This isn't regime change. This is demand for change. This is demand for behavior regime. Are you fucking kidding me? Come on, Mike.
The interim government.
This is not a regime change. This is a demand for a change of behavior by a regime. What?
Is stood up now, God. And we are to correct their action. They cannot participate with narco-terrorists and very dangerous international criminal organizations that harm and target Americans, frankly, and traffic all of these dangerous drugs into our country. They do all this great harm to our country. They cannot continue that activity. We have a way of persuasion.
What?
Because their oil exports, as you know, have been ceased, and I think that will bring the country to a new governance in very short order. So we don't expect troops on the ground. We don't expect direct involvement in any other way beyond.
Even though we've already had troops on the ground, because you don't kidnap somebody from the air, my guy. We've already had troops on the ground, Mike.
Just coercing the interim government to get that going. Look, I expect that there will be an election called in Venezuela. I mean, some of these things are still being determined, of course, but it should happen in short order, and I think it will need to be so that their economy can remain stabilized and the country can remain stabilized.
Again, the quote of the day, quote, "This is not a regime change. This is a demand for a change of behavior by a regime. We don't expect direct involvement in any other way beyond just coercing the new interim government to get that going." What the fuck else would you call that? There are troops on the ground right now protecting oil interests. Mike? Just listen to this again. I'm sorry.
You said the United States is not occupying Venezuela. Right. So how is the United States going to run Venezuela, like the president said repeatedly, saying that the United States is in charge of Venezuela? And how much is this going to cost the United States taxpayers in terms of dollars and troops?
Look, some of these things were discussed in the SCIF. I want to say that the way that this is being described, I think, is accurate. This is not a regime change. This is a demand for a change of behavior by a regime.
Oh my God.
The interim government is stood up now, and we are hopeful that they will be able to correct their action. They cannot participate with narco-terrorists and very dangerous international criminal organizations that harm and target Americans, frankly, and traffic all of these dangerous drugs into our country. They do all this great harm to our country. They cannot continue that activity. We have a way of persuasion because their oil exports, as you know, have been ceased, and I think that will bring the country to a new governance in very short order. So we don't expect troops on the ground. We don't expect direct involvement in any other way beyond just coercing the interim government to get that going. Look,
coercing. You've heard enough. Coercing. Again, he's trying to double down on the fact that he believes it's about the narco-terrorist state. It's not at all, right? BT Dubs, thank you, Christy. Christy started the Dollar Train, friends. If you want to support the channel, great way to do that is through the various things that exist out there, all at Factsstillmatter. V, PP, and CA. Okay. Thank you all very, very much. 1,600 people in here. If we could really bang out the likes, my friends, appreciate you all very much.
Hey now.
Let's get the likes up there. Let's see if we can hit 500K today, because we've got a lot to do, and we're going to cover J6. I'm going to play some sound for you, so we're going to really need to work together to protect the live. So more engagement you guys have, the better off we'll all be. Again, that's Mike Johnson, the do-nothing Speaker of the House. Once again, this is about regime change and enriching the corporate interests in big oil, enriching themselves. Investments made by members of Congress, we went through this yesterday, 93% of all big oil money makes its way to Republicans in Congress. Some Democrats too, but 93%. 93%. Just back in November, there was a vote in the Senate to make sure that any further actions in Venezuela would require congressional approval. And every single Democrat voted for it, and every Republican, with the exception of 2, Rand Paul and Lisa Murkowski, and then both senators from Utah did not vote. Because that vote failed because of Republicans, not because of Democrats, because of Republicans, the president now has this authority. It would not have happened if Republicans in Congress, who are not making money from big oil, had voted to use their authority under Article 1 of the Constitution. But nope. I look different? What's going on? Does the light look clearer? I don't know what's going on. I had to get a new light. Maybe that's what it is. My ring light broke, so I had to get a new one. It might look different. Hopefully it looks better. I don't know, whatever. Sorry. I don't care about that stuff, but sorry. Okay. Anyway, that's our Congress. That's our Speaker of the House. A little bit more sound from the rhetoric that we get from our president. This was then and now. Some more examples of presidents change on flip-flopping on regime change. Right, here you go.
We must abandon the failed policy of nation building.
This was back in 2016. So these are some highlights from 2016. Claims that he made leading up right up until now. Claims that he's made regarding regime change. Okay.
And regime change that Hillary Clinton pushed in Iraq, in Libya, in Egypt, and in Syria.
We're going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition.
We're getting out of the nation building business and instead focusing on creating stability in the world.
Moving forward for Venezuela, what do you think is next for the Venezuelan people now that you have removed Maduro so that he can face American justice?
Well, we're making that decision now. We can't take a chance on letting somebody else run and just take over where he left off. So we're making that decision now. We'll be involved in it very much.
Our policy of never-ending war, regime change, and nation building is being replaced by the clear-eyed pursuit of American interests.
Don't ask me who's in charge because I'll give you an answer and it'll be very controversial.
What does that mean?
It means we're in charge. I'm not going to start a war. I'm going to stop wars. Colombia is very sick too.
So there will be an operation by the U.S.
It sounds good to me.
Again, I share that for our friends on the right. Explain it to me. Explain to me that just this summer, we talked about things like that. You've got your director of national intelligence just a few months back talking about how this administration does not support regime change. Then you get like Stephen Miller saying, we're just going to basically take Greenland. We're just going to run Venezuela. You see, the thing is that to our MAGA simps, and a lot of you are in here this morning, it's really, really simple. It comes down to basically, you could use this same argument for anything controversial connected to the president. Here you go. Either you accept the fact that the president lied to you, or you don't give a fuck. A little bit of both, right? A little bit of both. Obviously, he lied. Obviously, he built his entire platform on no new wars. I'm sick and tired of spending money overseas. Not going to send our war fighters to fight anywhere. And you guys cheered for that. And in fact, a lot of people agreed. A lot of people said, we don't support these endless wars. We support defending our allies, especially when it comes to Ukraine against Russia. But a lot of people agreed. And here we are now doing exactly what you guys were told he wasn't going to do anymore. And here it is. And if you want to use the argument that it's not a war, then what would it be? If it's law enforcement, then why wasn't it the FBI? Why wasn't it Interpol? There are indictments against him. Why wasn't it law enforcement? Why was it the military? Why was it the war fighters? Why was military equipment used, paid for by taxpayers? Hey, Les, what misinformation am I spreading? Let's see if Les comes up. I'm just curious, because you said I'm spreading misinformation. No one would make a claim like that from the cheap seats unless they had evidence. If you'd like to come up to the box and explain to me what misinformation I'm spreading, I'd be happy to have that conversation with you. But you won't. So maybe you should just sit in the corner. Thank you. Appreciate you. Less. What misinformation am I spreading? Less. Are you there?
No. Did I miss it? Well, it does not.
Less.
Okay.
Less. Going once. Less going twice. Less. Are you? Less is no more. Anyway, that's where we sit with this thing. The argue if you, how do I say this? How do I say this nicely? I'm not going to say it nicely. Why is it so difficult to just accept the fact that you have been lied to? And acknowledging that would then say, okay, he lied to me, but I don't care. You can't use, well, it's not a war. You can't use that. You can't use that. Donald Trump is the first president in American history to bomb 8 separate countries in 1 year. Iran, Iraq, Somalia, Yemen, Venezuela, Nigeria. And then arming Bibi so he can go after more countries. But those aren't wars either, right? And by definition, you're right. It's not technically a war, but we haven't, again, been in a war under our conditions of actually declaring war since World War II. But you want to walk up to a veteran of Somalia, of Iraq, of Afghanistan, and tell them that we weren't at war? That's why they call it the war in Iraq. That's why they call it the war in Afghanistan. What is it that you're going to do? Are you just going to constantly just defend this stuff? Are you just going to constantly just admit to the world that you are the biggest fucking hypocrites ever? Of course it was a big lie of solving 8 wars. It said he ended 8, but started 8? Like, I mean, what? Okay. All right, I want to get into our coverage of J6. Before I do that, though, I want a couple of other pieces of news. As you may have heard, Tim Walz decided to step down to in his run to be reelected as governor of Minnesota. And of course, the right is now trying to say he's trying to run from the corruption. Look, and I've seen people on the left be critical of this, and I think it's bullshit for people on the left to be criticizing him. I mean, if our goal is to protect our family, his family's been facing death threats. Okay, his daughter Hope has been getting death threats because of people on the fucking right, because of fucking cowards on the fucking right doing that shit. So people want to criticize him saying taco, I think it's fucking bullshit. The man is protecting his family. Okay? The man's protecting his family. So because of the lies that have been told about him, right? So much so that because of those lies, and funny how Nick Shirley better fucking lawyer up, because the agency within the state of Minnesota that investigates these things have visited these daycares and they found no fraud, right? No fraud that Nick Shirley claimed. So he better lawyer the fuck up. So all I'm saying. So what that has done is allowed people to, you've gone so far left to fix yourself. Okay, whatever, swear. Yep, okay, your private account, good for you. The Trump administration then plans aggressive immigration crackdown with 2,000 agents in Minnesota amid welfare fraud scandal. Gee, you think? Trump administration is deploying around 2,000 federal agents to Minneapolis as part of an immigration crackdown on the heels of a welfare fraud scandal in Minnesota, according to 2 law enforcement officials. Senior Trump officials have fixated on Minnesota and its Somali community after accusations of alleged fraud by members of the community last month. President Trump called the community garbage and sent federal immigration authorities to the state. But the right doesn't solicit or initiate violence, right? Of course not. The latest mobilization marks an escalation in the immigration enforcement push. Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents, as well as U.S. Border Patrol agents, are deploying to Minnesota. U.S. Customs and Border Protection Commander Gregory Bovino, he's a fucking idiot, whose controversial tactics have come under increased scrutiny in multiple cities, is also expected to deploy to Minneapolis. Great. In response to questions about the deployment, Homeland Security Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin told CNN, quote, "While for the safety of our officers, we do not get into law enforcement footprint, DHS has surged law enforcement and has already made more than 1,000 arrests of unalivers, grapists, P3DOs, and gang members with no evidence, mind you. Federal agents have already been on the ground, and the escalated presence in the city is already underway as authorities ramp up the administration's crackdown. This is what happens. Same thing happened in Springfield, Ohio. This is what happens. The communities that get caught in the crosshairs of the president and the fucks in his administration are under threat. For what? For what? For what? So people on the left, miss me with your fucking Taco Tim that he ran from this. Fuck you. Fuck you. His family has been threatened. Their lives have been threatened because of this. What's the responsible thing to do to protect your family is to do exactly what he did. There is no evidence of fraud connected to Tim Walz. None. So those of you on the left that are trying to do this now, fuck you, fuck all of you. I'm not interested in talking to you. It's fucking bullshit. It's bullshit. I don't blame him either. I don't blame him either. He's got a special needs kid. His daughter's been under threat. What the fuck are you doing criticizing him for that? Who fucking cares? What's more important, being the governor or protecting your family? Miss me with that fucking bullshit. Seriously. I'll leave it right there. All right. Let me just check a couple things here real quick. Marcy, might have been from yesterday. No, Marcy, thank you for your $1 on the dollar chain. Thank you very, very much. I appreciate you guys. Also, that's great. Thank you very much. Chelsea, thank you, thank you, Chelsea. Appreciate you very much. Chelsea says, TikTok won't stop me from gifting. Thanks for all you do. I appreciate you. Let me just adjust this real quick and we'll move on. All right. So I want to talk about J6 now. Okay. Gifting suspended again, of course. Yeah. I don't know why, but it is what it is. 5 years ago, obviously we know what happened. Here's the thing. How we cover this today, I want to try to keep the live up. So I'm not going to play video. I'll play the audio from some of the clips that I've assembled. There's a timeline. You'll obviously hear the sound, but I'm going to choose not to play the video portion just because I want to try to keep the live up. We're going to talk about some of the biggest lies that were told, even many of them told still to this day. We're going to talk about those people that were convicted of crimes and sentenced, in many cases pled guilty. We're going to talk about some of the things that they have done since their pardon by the president. In fact, some of the worst crimes imaginable. Crimes against children. Some of the people that were pardoned by the president since their pardon have gone on to commit crimes against children. Point being, not some of the nicest people in the world that were invading the Capitol. Insurrectionists, riotous, traitors. So the first sound I'm going to play for you is sort of a culmination of lots of things. You're going to hear from Adam Kinzinger. You're going to hear from others. You're going to hear some testimony from people who appeared before the J6 committee. We'll get into all that, and then we're gonna paint the picture. I'm going to take you back in time a little bit. Do my best. I'll do the best I can to try to cover this, but I need you guys to stay engaged. Thank you.
President Trump did not fail to act during the 187 minutes between leaving the ellipse and telling the mob to go home. He chose not to act.
I'm someone who has worked with him. You know, I worked on the campaign, traveled all around the country, going to countless rallies with him, and I've seen the impact that his words have on his supporters. They truly latch on to every word and every tweet that he says. And so I think that in that moment, for him to tweet out the message about Mike Pence, it was him pouring gasoline on the fire and making it much worse. We were in a room full of people, but people weren't paying attention. And so she looked directly at me and in a hushed tone shared with me that the president did not, that he finally agreed to include it.
I began to see for the first time those images on TV of the chaos that was unfolding at the Capitol. One of my aides handed me a sheet of paper that contained the tweet that you just read. I read it and was quite disturbed by it. I was disturbed and worried to see that the president was attacking Vice President Pence for doing his constitutional duty. So the tweet looked to me like the opposite of what we really needed at that moment, which was a de-escalation. And that's why I had said earlier that it looked like fuel being poured on the fire. So that was the moment that I decided that I was going to resign, that would be my last day at the White House. I simply didn't want to be associated with the events that were unfolding on the Capitol.
The members of the VP detail at this time were starting to fear for their own lives. There was a lot of yelling, a lot of very personal calls over the radio. So it was disturbing. I don't like talking about it, but there were calls to say goodbye to family members, so on and so forth. It was getting, for whatever the reason was on the ground, the VP detail thought that this was about to get very ugly.
I just want to address that comment he said during his speech peacefully and patriotically. Yeah, how did that work out? Keep in mind that Jack Smith in his testimony said, and we all know this, those of us that have a brain, would January 6, 2021 have happened at all if the president had just accepted the results of the election? The answer is no. So you can try to use wordplay as much as you want. Yeah, that's an attempt for plausible deniability to say peacefully and patriotically. And at the same time, he said, if you don't fight, you lose your country. And then we've got Rudy Giuliani, trial by combat, John Eastman, kick ass and take names, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But again, this is my point. Now, I'm glad you made that comment because that's exactly why we're going to do this today. Okay, so I'm going to start by playing a little bit of sound. ABC compiled this. This is from about a year after. This is actually from January 4th, 2022. Okay, so obviously there's been some updates since then. There's been some more arrests made since then. Of course, the pardons have happened since then, right? So I'm just going to play this sound for you. It's about 7 minutes long. I just need you guys to do me a solid, right? Please just tap like crazy. Don't forget to support the live. Our gifts have been suspended again, but if you can gift, go for it. If not, I understand, but just please stay engaged in the live. Appreciate y'all very, very much. Here you go.
On January 6th, 2021, thousands of rioters, many coming from the Save America rally, stormed the U.S. Capitol as Congress met to certify the 2020 presidential election results. 5 people died that day, including 1 police officer, and 140 law enforcement officers were injured. It was later estimated that $1.5 million in damages were done to the Capitol.
That estimate is closer to $5 million now, since it's all been compiled?
According to the Department of Justice. As the dust settled, President Trump was impeached for a second time for his role in the insurrection. And the ongoing FBI investigation continues to make arrests and file charges. So far, more than 700 participants have been arrested from nearly every state. Here's how the day unfolded. That morning, thousands gathered at the Ellipse near the White House to hear the president and his allies speak.
Okay, again, I'm going to pause periodically just to kind of remind people of folks. People gathered that day in D.C. because of statements the president had made during the month of December and leading up to that. Actually priming the pump before the election, back in August, July and August of that year, making claims that the only way I could lose the election is if it were rigged. Okay? F1 in the chat. So that was all the priming of the pump. In December, he said, big event on DC, Stop the Steal rally. It's going to be wild. Everybody was there in DC that day because the president told them to be there. If he had accepted the results of the election like an adult, like every president before him, none of this would have happened. None of it. None of it. I'll say it again for those of you in the back. None of this would have happened if he had just accepted the results of the election. And he didn't. So that's why people were there that day. That's why.
Shortly before noon, President Trump addressed the crowd.
We will never give up. We will never concede. We're going to walk down to the Capitol because you'll never take back our country with weakness. You have to show strength and you have to be strong.
He spoke for little over an hour. Supporters then marched toward the Capitol as the president returned to the White House, where he wouldn't be heard from again until a tweet at 2:24 p.m.
So the president left, told people who were there that day. Again, the people that were there that day were there because he told them to be there. He told them it was going to be wild. He told them it was going to be the Stop the Steal event. He stood on stage and said, you'll never have a country unless you fight. Okay? It never would have happened. This is what I don't know if this gets expressed enough, and shame again on mainstream media. This event, that day, one of the darkest days, if not the darkest day in American history, would not have happened if the president had not opened his mouth and lied. Period. Period. There's no debating that.
Initially, only Capitol Police were stationed. Additional MPD officers will be called to assist by 1 p.m. A large crowd approached approximately 5 Capitol Police officers, standing at a fenced-off entrance near the Peace Monument. According to ABC News sources that day, many Capitol Police were armed only with mace and their sidearms. As the crowd pushed the barricades over, the police were quickly overwhelmed. In contrast to other events in D.C. during the summer of 2020, additional state and federal law enforcement was not pre-staged ahead of the riot. Within minutes, protesters began swarming other entrances at the Capitol, breaking through barricades and continuing to push further toward the building. During this time, explosive devices were reported outside of the Democrat and Republican headquarters. An hour later, the police could no longer hold their line, and rioters fought their way up a temporary staircase built for the inauguration. The Capitol was breached for the first time at 2:12 p.m. through smashed windows in the...
The Capitol was breached. Okay, so the first people that were in the Capitol, Dominic Pizzola, there's that famous scene where he's got the police riot shield and he's smashing the window and going in. And one of the lies that the right likes to say is that, oh, the police officers opened the doors. There were already people inside the Capitol. Why would they have smashed the windows if the doors were open? See, this is where I know logic doesn't necessarily apply to Trump supporters and MAGA voters in particular. But answer that question. If the doors were open, why would they have had to smash the windows? And why were they in the Capitol before there were claims about doors just being opened? See, when you start to think it through a little bit, MAGA, your argument falls flat on its face.
The Senate wing on the west side of the building. As senators sought shelter, Officer Eugene Goodman ran to head off the rioters. On his way, he passed Mitt Romney and told him to turn around. Goodman found the rioters and directed them toward the police backup, away from fleeing senators. Outside, Officer Brian Sicknick was sprayed with bear repellent and died the next day from a stroke, according to a medical examiner. At 2:26, Vice President Pence was taken to safety, with the country's nuclear codes in the hands of a nearby aide. At the same time, President Trump commented publicly for the first time since his speech, tweeting, "Mike Pence didn't have the courage to do what should have been done to protect our country and our Constitution."
Just real quick. Again, this is the statement the president made on his tweet. Mike Pence didn't have the courage to do what should have been done to protect our country and our Constitution. Within minutes of that, because one of the rioters had a bullhorn and read that tweet, within minutes, the chants started to come down the pipe, hang Mike Pence, hang Mike Pence. So don't fucking tell us that this wasn't a plot to overthrow our government because the narcissist, the malignant narcissist, pathetic, the twice impeached, 4-time indicted, sexually abusing frauds or convicted felon name on a list predator didn't lead the entire fucking thing. And by the way, thank you for posting this, Cookie. This is the definition of a terrorist organization. A group that uses premeditated, politically motivated violence, often against civilians, to create terror, intimidate populations, or coerce governments to achieve ideological or political goals, involving acts like bombings, assassinations, kidnappings, and violent attacks, and is often designated by nations for legal sanctions. People that were there that day, those that organized, the Oath Keepers, the Proud Boys, etc., terrorist organizations, based on the fucking definition. Period. Thank you for doing that, Cookie. I appreciate you.
Country and our Constitution. After a 30-minute fight between police and rioters, the east side of the Capitol was breached.
They broke the glass. Everybody stay down.
By 2:45 p.m., members of the Capitol security team barricaded the entry doors to the chamber. Congress members retrieved gas masks from underneath their seats, and tear gas had been released into the rotunda. Outside the House chamber in a stairwell, protesters attempted to get into a secured hallway. One woman, Ashley Babbitt, was shot by a Capitol policeman and later died. On the other side of the Capitol, rioters broke into the Senate chamber to search for documents and pose for pictures, as captured by Luke Mogelson of The New Yorker. Around 2:50, the police line outside was pushed back into the Capitol tunnel, where a crowd crushed officers against a doorway. By now, hundreds of rioters occupied the Capitol, some roaming with Confederate flags, sitting at the Speaker Pelosi's desk, and vandalizing the building. By mid-afternoon, many political leaders and allies of President Trump called on the president to make a statement and denounce the protest.
I tried to call the president immediately, and I've tried a number of different ways to get him.
I call on President Trump. Go on national television now to fulfill his oath and defend the Constitution and demand an end to this siege.
At 4:17 p.m., more than 2 hours after the violence began, President Trump tweeted a minute-long pre-recorded video speaking to the protesters.
You have to go home now. We have to have peace. So go home. We love you.
We love you.
At the tunnel, the assault on the police intensified.
We love you. He was watching that video eventually 2.5 hours later when he finally made that fucking post after Ivanka had to get in his fucking head and say, dude, you got to say something. He watched police officers being beaten up. He watched police officers being assaulted with bear spray. He watched people talking about hanging Mike Pence. He watched people inside the Capitol. He watched police officers being beaten with their own weapons. He watched treasonous, riotous, insurrectionist traitors beating up law enforcement, dragging cops down the steps. And he said, we love you. Okay.
Officers were repeatedly attacked with a variety of weapons, from a hockey stick to crutches and batons. At 5:02 p.m., heavily armed police arrived in the tunnel and the crowd backed down. And by 5:41, almost 5 hours after the riot started, authorities began to regain control of the Capitol. By 8 p.m., senators resumed session in the Senate chamber to confirm electoral votes.
Today was a dark day in the history of the United States Capitol.
Congress worked through the night and at 3:39 a.m. certified Joe Biden as the 46th president of the United States. A week later, on January 13th, 10 Republicans joined House Democrats to impeach President Trump for inciting an insurrection.
Yep.
On this vote, the ayes are 232, the nays are 197.
He became the first president to be impeached twice. On June 30th, 2021, the House of Representatives voted to create a committee to investigate the Capitol insurrection. The ongoing investigation has conducted more than 150 interviews and issued at least 45 subpoenas. President Trump has called the investigation a partisan sham and a waste of taxpayer dollars.
So it's easy to say that. And here's the thing, is that people, because the president said they called it a witch hunt and a political sham, his followers believe that, which is why He continues to talk about it, and followers like the idiots that are in the chat today are sharing the same thing, which proves once again that whatever he tells you, you will believe. Whatever he tells you, you would believe, which then would imply that you're in a fucking cult. He told you, F1 in the chat, please. He told you the election was stolen. It wasn't. You still believe it. He told you it was Nancy Pelosi's fault. The guard wasn't there. You believe it. It's not true. He told you that these were patriots. They aren't. They never were. They're pathetic fucking traitors. And any of you who support this, there are people in our country today who brag about being there. Whatever the numbers were, a few 100,000, like 10 million people brag that they were there. Again, in 10 years' time, you won't be bragging to your grandchildren or your children. You'll say, I want nothing to do with this. I wasn't there. And then there'll be a Facebook post that your grandson or your son will find and say, Dad, isn't that you? Yeah, well, I was just there to capture video footage. So you didn't believe that? So you didn't believe the election was stolen? Oh, no, of course not. I would never believe that. 140 police officers were assaulted that day, dragged within inches of their lives, beat up, hit with flagpoles and crutches and bear spray and pepper spray. Oh, well, yeah, there were weapons there that day, including firearms. I'll play some sound of that in just a moment. Insurrectionist traitors. Every single one that went to the Capitol that day because the president told them the election was stolen, if he had just admitted it and accepted his defeat. Mag, I got something wild for you. Check this out. If Donald Trump in 2020 was honest about COVID, if he had stood in front of the American people and told people how serious it was, decided to sell MAGA masks, he would have won re-election in a fucking landslide. And it would not have been close. If he had just accepted the results of the election and gone about his way, he would not have been indicted for crimes. If he did not steal documents from the White House and take them to Mar-a-Lago, he would not have been indicted for that either. But again, you want to claim it's weaponization of government? That's because you're pathetic just like he is. If he had just accepted the results of the election like every president had done prior, he would have been celebrated. Would have been no legacy. We wouldn't be here talking about it today. But no, he couldn't do that because he's pathetic, just like his followers.
Of the more than 700 rioters arrested through the Department of Justice and FBI investigation, nearly 20 have been given jail time. Robert Scott Palmer.
Obviously, that's an update that's been updated since then because this came out on January the 4th of 2022.
Sentenced to over 5 years for throwing a fire extinguisher at law enforcement. Scott Fairlamb filmed punching a police officer, and Jacob Chansley, the self-described QAnon shaman, both received 3.5-year prison sentences.
And don't forget, Jacob Chansley just announced a $40 trillion lawsuit against Donald Trump. I shit you not.
While Fairlamb and Chansley pled guilty, each has since appealed to withdraw their pleas. After the insurrection, former President Trump was banned from major social media.
Do you miss me yet?
But he remains popular among his base. A Quinnipiac poll from October 2021 found that 78% of Republicans want to see him run again in 2024.
And they voted for him again. And I was just watching the comments scroll by, and somebody pointed this out. We are 5 years from this, 5 years today. It doesn't matter what any of us say. The reason that I am covering this today is because I refuse to let this moment in history just dissipate, just end up on the dustbin. People who are in the cult, the MAGA cult, are still convinced that the president of the United States was screwed out of the 2020 election. And I just watched the comments go by. And it makes me, hi Erica, and it just makes me laugh that your claim is that it was weaponization of the government against the president, his own government. A lot of you believe when the president just a few months back went out on True Social and said the Biden FBI had 274 operatives in the crowd on January 6, 2021. There was no Biden FBI on January 6, 2021. But you believe that too. In fact, I saw a comment about that right now. You called it the Biden FBI. There was no Biden FBI. You are still convinced that it was Nancy Pelosi, that it was Antifa, but yet the president pardoned all those people. Why would he pardon Antifa? Why would he pardon people that were against him? Why would he call the people that were in jail because of their crimes that day, why would he call them patriots? Why would there be a J6 choir? Why would a Democrat plot to halt the transfer of power to the candidate from their party that won? Why would that happen? Why is it that this summer the president used his authority and his commander-in-chief responsibilities over the D.C. National Guard to deploy the D.C. National Guard in D.C., but why on January 6, 2021 was that the Speaker of the House's responsibility? You see, when you break it down like that, when you have a fucking brain and you break it down like that, do you see how pitiful you sound when you make these defenses? Yeah, the J6 choir. Exactly. Mike Flynn. You're right, Best Sam. Make it make sense. Make that make sense. Make any of what I just said make sense. I'm going to go through the exercise. We're going to talk about some of the people that were pardoned from that day and some of the, I've got the timeline that I broke down for you as well, and some of the crimes that a lot of these people who were pardoned have committed since. We're going to talk about the letter from Chris Miller. We talk about Chris Miller's testimony. He said, no, that there was no order given. I wasn't given an order. We're going to debunk a lot of those lies. Okay? So I'm going to play some sound now. NPR has done a real good encapsulation. This part talks specifically about weapons and injuries from that day. So I'll play this sound for you too. Your live is flagged for misinformation. Great. Everybody, I need you guys tapping like crazy. You see what I mean? There's no misinformation here. Friends, if we drop, we'll be on the backup. Everybody, I need your help. I need you to tap like you've never tapped before. I don't know if gifting is still suspended, but if it hasn't, please gift. F1 in the chat. We love the TikTok shop. Please, please, please. See, this is what I'm talking about. Is tap that screen, friends, like you've never tapped before. If we can get to 500K or even 1 million likes today, that would be fantastic. That will help us keep the live engaged. There's 2,000 people in here. TikTok, this is good for you. We love the TikTok shop. We really appreciate the TikTok shop. Of course, they're reporting. Amazing, right? Exactly. So we're going to play this now at risk of having the live crash. It is what it is. This is from NPR. This part talks about the weapons that were there that day.
You are enemies of the United States of America!
What patriots do? We fucking disarm them, and then we storm the fucking Capitol!
The January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol was 5 years ago, and there are still some myths about the riot that will not go away. Like the idea that the rioters were unarmed.
Got the carbon fiber knuckles, matching hatchets, and a little bit of excitement.
At NPR, we've obtained and reviewed thousands of videos from the January 6th court cases. Those videos show how many people brought weapons, plus body armor and gas masks.
We need weapons! We need strong, angry patriots to help our fight!
They used those weapons to assault police and break through police lines.
Cruiser 50, 8600, 2 more hard platoons ASAP. We have multiple
We are back. Thank you. Figured that was going to happen. Thank you for being here, friends. Keep tapping. I guess the good news is that gifting is back. I'm really quiet now. I don't know why I would be quiet. Yeah. All right. I'm not gonna bother playing the rest of that little sound. Only because our friends on the right are so triggered today. I've got a lot of data that I can share with you though. Thank you guys for being here. Everybody, let's let people gather a little bit and we'll get everybody over here. Yeah, I know it's strange. Let me add a goal here. The new goal structure is really strange. I'm gonna delete that one. I'm gonna put this one here. We're gonna edit it and we're gonna make it 250 of the gifting portion. So there you go. It's updated. Okay. All right. So what I want to do now, too bad we had 2,000 people in here. That's what happens, sadly. Everybody, I'm going to use this as a reminder. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can find the YouTube is at The Factsstillmatter. And if you want to, you can also subscribe to Twitch. You'll find that. So all of my socials are at Factsstillmatter through the various methods. If you want to support the channel, we are crowdfunded. Don't forget. And you want to help us out, you can do that at CAPP or Vimo. So thank you guys. All right, let me see what I've got here. All right, as people are building, thank you for being here. So let me do this. Instead of playing any more sound, I think sufficiently. I don't want to take the live down again, obviously, but what I want to kind of go through first is the timeline. I think that's probably the best place to start because I don't want people to forget. And this is the timeline of the events that particular day. We've already played the sound from the president. We know that what he said that day. I know that the right wants to say it was peacefully and patriotically. And yeah, he said that for plausible deniability. But he also said you can't take your country back unless you fight. You're going to fight like hell, right? And don't forget, we have Rudy Giuliani saying this.
Criminals hide evidence.
How interesting that he would say that he would have said that in hindsight. Only criminals hide evidence. Lots of hiding going on with the Jeffrey files.
Not honest people. So, over the next 10 days, we get to see the machines that are crooked, the ballots that are fraudulent, and if we're wrong, we will be made fools of. But if we're right, a lot of them will go to jail. So, let's have trial by combat.
Oh. So people that are there that day at the direction of the president, firing them up, come to D.C., it's going to be wild. Paying for chartered flights, paying for buses, permits for rallies, stop to steal this, stop to steal that. They're already fired up. They're already angry. They've been told that their country's being stolen from them. They've been told that the president was screwed. They've got all their fucking merch. And then Rudy Giuliani stands up in front of them and says, trial by combat. And you hear them cheer, but nothing to see here, right?
I'm willing to stake my reputation. The president is willing to stake his reputation on the fact that we're going to find criminality there. Is Joe Biden willing to stake his reputation that there's no crime there? No.
What? Anyway, that's Rudy. All right, this is the timeline. This is just day of, okay? This is just day of. From 8 to 10:30 a.m., thousands of supporters gather in D.C. Far-right groups, Proud Boys, Oath Keepers, 3%ers, and others, Patriot Front, are already positioned near the Capitol. Intel. We've got inside reporting from the J6 committee. There was this coordinated effort. Don't forget, there was the war room the night before, famous pictures from downstairs in a parking garage. There was a coordinated effort. They had a stash of firearms across the river in Virginia. We know all this from reporting. Congress prepares to certify the Electoral College votes under the 12th Amendment and Electoral Count Act. From 11 a.m. till 12:15 p.m., the rally is at the Ellipse. Trump speaks at the Ellipse near the White House, repeats false claims the election was stolen, tells the crowd, if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore. That is a quote. Yes, he also said, peacefully and patriotically. He also said, if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore. So the question that I ask our friends on the right, did they go to the Capitol peacefully and patriotically, or did they go to the Capitol and fight like hell? I'll wait. So the answer is B. They fought like hell. They fought for what? What did they fight for? They fight because they were told that they were lied to. No, they were lied to. That's why they fought. They didn't go there peacefully and patriotically. Some people just walked in, they got trespassing, whatever. But thousands attacked police officers. Thousands beat up law enforcement, broke into the Capitol, brought a Confederate flag, wiped shit on the walls, stole property. So again, the president said peacefully and patriotically, and he also said, this is a quote, if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore. Rudy Giuliani said trial by combat. Question is, what did the insurrectionist traitorous mob do? Did they go peacefully and patriotically, or did they fight like hell? Anybody with a brain that's not in a fucking cult, the answer is B, obviously. He then encourages his supporters to march to the Capitol. Mike Pence is pressured publicly to reject certified electors. He has no constitutional authority to do so. From 12:30 to 1 p.m., large groups march from the Ellipse towards the Capitol. So again, after the president makes this statement, many of them had already started to walk there. But after the president made this statement, the mob dispersed the Ellipse and walked to the Capitol. Security presence is thin relative to crowd size. Congress is in session. Pence is presiding over certification. From 1 p.m. till 2 p.m., when the first breaches happen. 1 p.m., Congress formally begins the electoral certification. 1:10 to 1:15 p.m., the first barricades are breached on Capitol grounds. 1:49 p.m., Capitol Police declare a riot. 2 p.m., rioters overwhelm police at multiple entrances. From 2:13 to 2:38 p.m., the Capitol is breached. 2:13 p.m., Pence evacuated from the Senate chamber. At 2:20, rioters enter the Capitol building. At 2:24, Trump tweets criticism of Pence for lacking courage. After evacuation, lawmakers shelter in place, some barricade doors. The President of the United States tweeted that Mike Pence didn't do his job within moments because Capitol rioters, you saw the video. If you watch Day of Rage, you can see Capitol rioters, insurrectionist traitors, looking at their phone, monitoring the president's Twitter feed. Within moments of the president posting that, they reiterated what he said, that Pence failed us. Pence let us down. Within moments of that, people were chanting, hang Mike Pence. Is that just a coincidence too? Okay. From 2:40 till 4 p.m., the violence peaks. Rioters roam the House and the Senate chambers. Offices are vandalized. Documents are stolen. Police are assaulted with flagpoles, fire extinguishers, bear spray, chemical spray, crutches. Ashley Babbitt is fatally shot while attempting to breach the Speaker's lobby. By the way, she was armed. She had a knife on her. Explosive devices were found near the RNC and the DNC headquarters. 4:17 p.m., 3.5 hours later, 3.5 hours after the first examples of violence from the timeline, 3.5 hours later, the president finally releases a statement in which he says, we love you and you're very special. and then asks them to go home while repeating election lies. When he asked them to go home, what did they do? They went home. That right there, in my mind, is evidence enough of how much he controlled that mob. Seriously. I don't know if there's anything other. I don't know if there's more clear an example of the power that he had over his mob that day. Because as soon as he told them to go home, they went home. After he said, "We love you and you're very special." Police officers, he saw the footage because we know from the reporting that he was watching it from the dining room next to the Oval Office. He obviously saw Capitol police officers being beaten up. He saw them being sprayed with pepper spray. He saw them being assaulted with flagpoles and crutches and everything else. He saw police officers being crushed in doorways. He saw all that. He saw it all. And so instead of addressing that like he did, he said, "We love you and you're very special." From 5 until 6, gifting suspended again. Great. Sweet. I don't know what's going on. We have to get off this space, but everybody keep tapping, please. Do me a solid, friends. Again, if you want to support the channel, your engagement is absolutely critical. We appreciate you all. Tap like crazy. You want to support us? You can do that through the various things that are out there in cyberspace at Factsstillmatter. From 5 until 6 o'clock, the clearing of the Capitol begins. D.C. National Guard arrives in force. Law enforcement regains control. A curfew was imposed. That night, Congress reconvenes at 8 o'clock. By 3:40 a.m. the next day, after some Republicans had still tried to say that the election results were rigged, Electoral College certification completed and Joe Biden officially confirmed as president-elect. 5 deaths associated with that day, including one police officer who died the next morning because of injuries sustained. But again, law enforcement. We love the blue, right? Of course. 140 plus police officers were injured. Thousands were charged. Hundreds convicted of felonies. Trump was impeached for a second time for incitement and insurrection. The Senate acquits him, but a bipartisan majority votes to convict, 57-43, which means bipartisan, which means Republican senators, again, Republican senators voted to remove. All right. Let's talk about some of the lies that are connected to that day. Well, let's talk about, first of all, the verified facts going into it. Donald Trump was repeatedly told by his DOJ leadership, his DHS officials, his state election authorities, including Republicans, his own campaign lawyers, that there was no evidence of outcome-changing fraud. The so-called fake elector slates were not certified by any state authority. Again, his own DOJ, his own DHS, Republicans, state election officials, judges, etc., all told him the same thing. So MAGA, I know you're in here. You eventually found us over here. Explain that to us. How does that work? How does every single person involved, his own family, his own attorney general, members of his staff, his cabinet, elected officials across the country, told him that, no, sir, you lost. There is no evidence of any widespread fraud. None whatsoever. So how is it then that you all still believe this? Are all those people part of the deep state too? Is that what you want to believe? Okay. During the attack on J6, he addressed the crowd, repeated those false election claims, and told supporters to march to the Capitol, which they did. The Capitol was breached. Congress was forced to halt the constitutional proceeding. Mike Pence was evacuated under threat. Trump tweeted criticism of Pence after Pence had been evacuated. Trump did not order immediate deployment of the National Guard, which we know from evidence. Trump's first clear public call for the rioters to leave came over 3 hours later, after the Capitol was breached. Multiple rioters have been convicted, including some for seditious conspiracy. We're going to go through that in a moment. Courts found the election fraud claims false or unsupported, and Trump was impeached for incitement of insurrection. A majority of the Senate voted to convict. Those are the facts. What we knew before J6, the DOJ told Trump repeatedly the fraud claims were false. Before January 6th, his own DHS, his own DOJ, his own cabinet, members of his family, all told him the same thing prior to that day. But he went ahead and did it anyway. White House counsel warned against illegal actions. Intelligence flagged potential for violence. He knew. Don't forget, they asked the mags, the magtrometers, the metal detectors to be removed. Thank you, Sam. The metal detectors to be removed. Why would you do that? Why would you ask for the metal detectors to be removed if you thought it was just Antifa? What, would you want Antifa to bring in firearms? Okay. Trump was informed early that the Capitol had been breached. Advisors like his own daughter urged him to intervene publicly. Some of his loyalists in the House and the Senate were calling him desperately, which is exactly why Jack Smith requested tolling records from that day to find out who he was speaking to. Not what they were saying. They don't have transcripts. They just have the phone records themselves. There was no immediate condemnation, sadly. No immediate guard deployment order. The video message at 4:17, including the praises, "We love you and we think you're special." Okay. The Pentagon's role, the Department of Defense, before J6, DC National Guard placed on limited standby. Again, the DC National Guard reports to the President of the United States. The President can delegate authority to subordinates, either the SecDef or the Secretary of the Army. But at the top of the hierarchy, or I should say, in the chain of command structure for the DC National Guard, nowhere is the Speaker of the House listed. So again, the question I ask, if the President had the authority to deploy the National Guard in DC this summer, then that would tell us logically the President had the same authority on January 6, 2021, because the law has not been changed. He's still the Commander-in-Chief. I should say the POTUS is still the Commander-in-Chief over the DC Guard. Formal authorization came after hours. The DC National Guard placed on limited standby. No proactive authorization for rapid deployment inside the Capitol. During J6, so that was before. During, guard deployment was delayed because the chain of command concerns, fear of optics after the summer of 2020 protests. Formal authorization came after hours of violence. The Pentagon cannot deploy the Guard to the Capitol without civilian authorization. Okay? Again, think about that. So that would have been required for the President. He's not in the military. He's the Commander-in-Chief. Before January 6th, the Capitol Police. Intelligence warnings existed but were fragmented. Requests for National Guard support were scaled down due to concerns about political optics. During January 6th, officers were quickly overwhelmed. Multiple pleas for backup issued once barricades failed. After J6, leadership failures were acknowledged, command staff resigned or were reassigned. Absolutely. As an after-action review, why were there not more Capitol Police there? Even still, where they were patrolling, it's because there were permits, right? There was no permits allowed for people weren't allowed on Capitol grounds. So should they have had more people there? I think you could arguably say that, but it has nothing to do with the J6 or with the National Guard not being deployed. That's the bigger issue. A request from Davey. Guess not. Okay, doesn't matter. There's no other way to discuss this thing than to focus on what we see now, right? It's when you are part of the cult, that is MAGA, your defense is always going to be in support of the cult leader. So it doesn't matter what we know about that day. It doesn't matter. All we know is what happened and why. The reason that J6 happened is because the president lied. The reason we know he had power over his base is because he told them to come to D.C. and they came to D.C. That power continued throughout the day because up until 4:17 p.m., when he had not uttered a word, he goes out with that infamous video and he says, "Go home now." And they went home. We know then that event would not have happened if it wasn't for him. Why did he not do it? That's the question.
Hi, my brother. How are you? You from
today,
Syria?
friend.
I need the help.
Not today, friend. Sorry. Okay. All right. J6 central figure Donald Trump. He committed constitutional violations based on the charges. Incitement of violence, attempt to obstruct Congress, and attempt to override state certified electors. We know that to be true based on the indictments. Never saw his day in court because of the fact that he won the election. We'll talk about that in a moment. A direct assault on Article 2, which is expansion of executive limits, Article 1, congressional authority, and the peaceful transfer of power. Now, where this whole thing, I think, where the media did not cover this well enough is I don't think enough focus was on the fake electors plot. And I think that's the biggest part that I really want people to kind of, I'm going to take people back in time a little bit to go through that. What I think I'm going to do now, I just need a quick break. Hang on one second. I'm not sure if I played this. I'll just play the sound again.
Hide evidence, not honest people. So, over the next 10 days, we get to see the machines that are crooked, the ballots that are fraudulent, and if we're wrong, we will be made fools of. But if we're right, a lot of them will go to jail. So, let's have trial by combat. I'm willing to stake my reputation. The president is willing to stake on the fact that we're going to find criminality there. Is Joe Biden willing to stake his reputation that there's no crime there? No.
Okay, sorry about that. So now I'm gonna shift gears a little bit, and I want to talk about Jack Smith's statements recently, because to me, this is what this whole thing boils down to. As you know, he testified, and eventually the public transcript and the video from his testimony became public. The J6 2021 riot does the Republican in the criminal conspiracy to overturn the results of the 2020 election. Republican-led House Judiciary Committee released last week a transcript and video of a closed-door interview Smith gave about the two investigations of Trump. The document shows how Smith, during the course of a day-long deposition, repeatedly defended the basis for pursuing indictments against Trump and vigorously rejected Republican suggestions that his investigations were politically motivated. Quote, "The evidence here made clear that President Trump was by a large measure the most culpable and most responsible person in this conspiracy. These crimes were committed for his benefit. The attack that happened at the Capitol, part of this case, does not happen without him. The other co-conspirators were doing this for his benefit," Smith said, bristling at a question about whether his investigation were meant to prevent Trump from reclaiming the presidency in 2024. Quote, "So in terms of why he would pursue a case against him, I entirely disagree with any characterization that our work was in any way meant to hamper him in the presidential election. The December 17th deposition was conducted privately despite Smith's request to testify publicly. The release of the transcript and video of the interview, so far Smith's only appearance on Capitol Hill since leaving his special counsel position last January, adds to the public understanding of the decision-making behind the two of the most consequential Justice Department investigations in recent history. Trump was indicted on charges of conspiring to undo the 2020 election, which we're discussing today. He lost to Joe Biden, and willfully retaining classified documents at his Mar-a-Lago estate in Florida. Both cases were abandoned after Trump's 2024 election win, with Smith citing Justice Department policy against the indictment of a sitting president. Smith repeatedly made clear his belief that the evidence gathered against Trump was strong enough to sustain a conviction. Part of the strength of the J6 case, Smith said, was the extent to which it relied on the testimony of Trump allies and supporters who cooperated with the investigation. Quote, "We had an elector in Pennsylvania who was a former congressman who was going to be an elector for President Trump, who said that what they were trying to do was an attempt to overthrow the government and illegally," Smith said. "Our case was built on, frankly, Republicans who put their allegiance to the country before the party." It's a great point. Republicans testified. What's his name? Rusty Bowers, Brad Raffensperger. Who's the gentleman named? The other gentleman from Florida. These were testimonies from people involved in these crimes, saying, "I voted for Trump. I wanted him to win, but he didn't." Accounts from Republicans willing to stand up against the falsehood of that election had been stolen, even though it could mean trouble for them, created what Smith described as the most powerful evidence against Trump. Party loyalists, people who supported him, people who voted for him, all the folks involved. So many people involved in support of the president, people who worked on his campaign, all said the same thing. I can't find you 11,780 votes because they don't exist. There is no election fraud, at least not enough to overturn the results. None. Lies about thousands of dead people voting. Lies in Pennsylvania that more people voted that live in the state. Just not true. None of it. When it came to the Capitol riot itself, Smith said the evidence showed that Trump, quote, caused it and that he exploited it and it was foreseeable to him. Asked whether there was evidence that Trump had instructed supporters to riot at the Capitol, Smith said that Trump, in the weeks leading to the insurrection, got, quote, people to believe fraud claims that weren't true. Exactly. The rally itself was called Stop the Steal. What was stolen? If that were allowed to proceed, that the 81 million people who voted for Joe Biden would have had the election stolen from them. That's the reality. It continues. He made false statements to state legislatures, to his supporters in all sorts of contexts, and was aware in the days leading up to J6 that his supporters were angry when he invited them and then directed them to the Capitol. They were angry. We saw the video. We've all seen it. We've all seen it. We know what they're talking about. We see the violent tendencies. We know who a lot of these people were. We know that the Proud Boys, the Oath Keepers, the 3%ers, and others had already staged it. They were being shown, they were being given tours of the Capitol in areas of the Capitol that people weren't supposed to go to at all, especially during C-19. That's the reality, okay? I know that our friends on the right will try to deny it and they'll try to pivot to, BLM protests. If that's all you've got, then go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Just go ahead and do that. That's fine. If that's what you need to make your fifis feel better, then go ahead. Now, once they were at the Capitol and once the attack on the Capitol had happened, quote, he refused to stop it. He instead issued a tweet that without question, in my mind, endangered the life of his own vice president, he added. And when the violence was going on, he had to be pushed repeatedly by his staff members to do anything to quell it. Some of the depositions focused on Republican anger at revelations that the Smith team had obtained and analyzed phone records of GOP lawmakers who were in contact with Trump on J6. Smith defended the maneuver as lawful and by the book and suggested that outrage over the tactics should be directed at Trump and not his team of prosecutors. Fully agree with that. Quote, well, I think who should be accountable for this is Donald Trump. These records are people. In the case of senators, Donald Trump directed his co-conspirators to call these people to further delay the proceedings. He chose to do that, Smith said. Quote, if Donald Trump had chosen to call a number of Democratic senators, we would have gotten toll records for Democratic senators. It's pretty cut and dry. Democratic senators weren't in contact with the president that day. Republican senators were in contact with the president that day. The communication between Trump and Republican supporters in Congress were an important component. Great. Restricted. Cool. I need you guys to tap like crazy. I figured this was going to happen today. The communication between Trump and Republican supporters in Congress were an important component of the case. Smith said. He cited an interview his office did with Mark Meadows in which Trump's former chief of staff referenced that Rep. Jim Jordan, an Ohio Republican and current chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, had been in touch with the White House on the afternoon of the riot. Why? Was Jim Jordan trying to tell the president to stop? When Democrats win back the House, Jim Jordan is certainly somebody that I want to have testify. To answer that question, what were you discussing with the president that day? I don't know the answer to that question. Okay, so did you discuss with the president why he has not yet asked the rioters to go home? I'm not going to answer that question. Of course, we can predict the testimony. And what I recall, hold on. And what I recall was Mark Meadows stating that I've never seen Jim Jordan scared of anything. And the fact that we were in this different situation now where people were scared really made it clear that what was going on at the Capitol grounds could not be mistaken for anything other than what it was. Smith was also asked whether his team evaluated former White House aide Cassidy Hutchinson's explosive claim that Trump then grabbed the steering wheel of the presidential SUV when the Secret Service refused to let him go to the Capitol after a rally at the Ellipse on January 6. Smith told lawmakers that investigators interviewed the officer who was in the car, who said that President Trump was very angry and wanted to go to the Capitol. But the officer's version of events was not the same as what Cassidy Hutchinson said was not the same as what Cassidy Hutchinson said she heard from somebody secondhand. So, again, the events of that day would not have happened unless the president had told his followers to go there. And again, I will add this. He told them to leave 3.5 hours after it started, and they left. So you cannot have it both ways. You can't be, he listened to them in this case, but what happened earlier or days before or weeks before, they would not have been there without him. Period. All right. Now, I want to talk about some of the lies. Let me do this first. Let's do the fake electors plot first, because that's part of this. Everybody, please keep tapping. I appreciate y'all. And if you want to support the channel, we are crowdfunded. Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, at Factsstillmatter. Appreciate you all. Let me just double check over here on something. Hang on. Okay. After losing the 2020 presidential election, again, after losing, because he lost, then President Trump and some of his allies pursued a plan to keep him in office by fabricating competing slates of electors in key states he had actually lost. In the U.S., the president is chosen, of course, by electors and not the popular vote. We know that. Fake slate creation in 7 battleground states: Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, New Mexico, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. Republican operatives and Trump campaign associates organized groups to falsely claim they were the legitimate presidential electors for Trump, even though Biden won those states. These groups met in mid-December 2020, the same day that legitimate electors cast their formal electoral college votes, and signed fraudulent certificates saying Trump won. Not only were they fraudulent certificates, they were made to look like actual certificates. They signed them. In doing so, they committed fraud. That's why we call it the fake electors plot. The plan was to have these fake certificates submitted to then Vice President Mike Pence and other officials so that during the January 6th congressional certification of the electoral vote, Pence or Congress might count the false slates instead of the legitimate ones, flipping the election outcome from Biden to Trump. The legal cover for this idea came from fringe theories developed by lawyers like Kenneth Cheeseborough and John Eastman, suggesting incorrectly that Pence had the authority to choose between competing slates. You know, it's been a while since I thought about this whole thing. I mean, again, any one thing like this that any other person would have ever done in our nation's history would have been immediately disqualified. They'd never show their face again. But not Trump, because his followers are pro-crime and pro-criminal. No doubt. Let me just check and back in with the mods. Okay. Mods, we good, guys? We good with comments being off? I trust you all. Thank you. All right. Again, the legal cover for this idea came from this fringe concept that you can have competing slates of electors. And they like to point to the election of Hawaii in 1960. That race was so close. And they were still going through the process of certifying. So the legislature in the state of Hawaii agreed to create two separate slates of electors. Again, the legislator agreed to do this so that when the results were officially certified, they would already have the slips ready to go. That's the difference. It was the legislature approved it. This didn't happen in this case. These were fake. These were fraudulent. In fact, we know that because many people involved in this pled guilty to their crimes. Okay, we know that. J6 was the constitutionally mandated day when Congress meets in joint session to count the electoral college votes and certify the winner. Trump and his allies hoped to use the existence of allegedly competing elector slates as a basis for pressuring Vice President Pence to reject or delay certification, creating a pretext to send the outcome back to state legislatures to replace legitimate electors with the fake ones, and undermining confidence in the electoral results and keeping Trump in office. Trump had been priming the pump. This goes back to the 2016 election, talking about election fraud. No one is going to sit here and deny that there are examples of fraud. We have the most recent examples are all Republicans. We know that people are arrested for making claims that they were surprised that their wife voted when their wife had been deceased. Come to find out, he was the person that submitted his wife's ballot. Mark Meadows attempting to vote in two separate locations. Numerous examples of election fraud. In the 2020 election, sure, there was election fraud, but nothing that would have ever overturned the results. That's what this issue is. So again, the gaslight and the straw man bullshit argument that the right likes to use, are you saying there's no fraud? Nope. Nobody's saying that. But there's no fraud, not nearly enough to overturn the results. That's what this has become about. When Pence, again, creating a pretext to send the outcome back to the state and then undermining confidence. Even though by January 6th, the fake slates had no legal authority, they were never certified by state officials and had no basis under the law, the false narrative around them became part of the broader effort to disrupt the congressional count. When Pence refused to go along with a scheme and certify only the legitimate electoral votes, that decision, coupled with Trump's repeated false assertions that the election was stolen, fueled anger amongst his supporters who were gathered in D.C. because of him. This helped precipitate the violent breach of the Capitol as rioters sought to stop the certification and keep Trump in office. Hang Mike Pence, etc. Dozens of people involved in the fake elector scheme, including electors and organizers like Rudy Giuliani and Kenneth Chesebro, have either been indicted, charged, and or pled guilty or convicted. Chesebro pled guilty in Georgia and was later disbarred. Others face charges in multiple states. This scheme is widely seen by investigators, including the House and J6 committee, as a central piece of the broader attempt to overturn the 2020 election, directly tied the events to J6. In short, the fake electors plot was an illegal effort to substitute fraudulent electoral college votes for legitimate ones. To manipulate the outcome of the 2020 election, it was part of a larger strategy to disrupt Congress's certification on J6 and help to fuel the circumstances that led to the Capitol attack. There is no denying that. There is just no denying that. Can we turn the comments back on, guys? I'm just, if it gets really bad, of course, we can turn them right back off again. I just want to see what's happening at this point. You know, it is what it is. Thank you. Thank you, guys. I appreciate that. All right. Let's talk about some of the biggest lies that were told that day. Okay? This is the part that I think is the most serious, because the lies themselves led to so much. Thank you, Sam, or whomever turned those back on. I appreciate you guys. Lie number one, J6 was just a peaceful protest. Reality, over 140 law enforcement officers were injured. Rioters breached barricades, smashed windows, forced evacuation of Congress. Lawmakers hid or fled while violent rioters lawmakers hid or fled while votes were being halted. Courts have repeatedly ruled this was a violent attack, not a peaceful assembly. Peaceful protests do not involve assaults on police officers, forced entry into the Capitol, or chance to execute elected officials. Lie number two, Antifa or the FBI orchestrated J6. Reality, no evidence of that whatsoever supports Antifa or the FBI orchestration. Hundreds of defendants self-identified as Trump supporters in court filings. Leaders of the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers were convicted of seditious conspiracy. Judges have repeatedly rejected the false flag theory as unsupported. This claim collapses under sworn testimony, video evidence, text messages, and guilty pleas. So think of it this way, right? The J6 choir, people that were in jail because of this, people that were pardoned by the president, why would they be pardoned if they were Antifa? Why? Why would they be pardoned? It's not, CXJR. Why would they be pardoned if they were Antifa? Why did the president have the authority to deploy the National Guard to D.C. this summer, but he didn't have the authority to do it on January 6, 2021? There's no law that's been changed. The president is the commander-in-chief of the National Guard in D.C. Yes or no? It's a simple question. It's a simple question. The president of the United States in our system of government has command and control, is the commander-in-chief over the D.C. National Guard. Yes or no? The answer is yes. Has it today, had it yesterday, had it 2 years ago, and had it 5 years ago. Hasn't changed. Officer number three. I'm sorry, lie number three. No one died because of J6. Officer Brian Sicknick lost his life after suffering strokes following confrontation with rioters. Multiple strokes. Hit with bear spray, chemical spray. Suffered a brain injury. 4 rioters lost their life that day due to medical emergencies or being shot while breaching the Capitol. People were trampled. People suffered cardiac events. And of course, Ashley Babbitt. 4 police officers later took their own lives by suicide, with departments citing J6 trauma as a contributing factor. Death does not have to be a gunshot at the scene to be casually connected. People serving. MAGA, don't you back the blue? Don't you support law enforcement? So these are cops up here, and these are insurrectionist, riotous traitors beating police officers. Don't you support the blue? 140 police officers assaulted that day? Were those cops Antifa? So again, how could they be Antifa? Everybody tap like crazy. We're going to get taken down again. This is what happens. Everybody tap like crazy. There's no possible way these could be the people, MAGA, that you think they are if they were then pardoned by the president. Need your all help to tap like crazy. I need you to gift like crazy. Friends, please. Appreciate you all very, very much. I think gifting has been suspended again, although I don't even know anymore. Lie number 4. Trump told people to be peaceful, so he bears no responsibility. Trump repeatedly promoted false election fraud claims despite being told that they were false. He told the crowd to fight like hell or you won't have a country anymore. He failed for hours to intervene once violence began, and courts and investigators focused on intent, pattern, and inaction, not isolated phrases. Responsibility is assessed by total conduct, not cherry-picked sentences. I'll reset the scripting goal. I'm going to add something. I'm going to add the Good Morning Coffee cup. Let's do that. Here we go. Okay. Again, responsibility is assessed by total conduct, not cherry-picked sentences. Yes, he said peacefully and patriotically. He also said fight like hell. Thank you. He also said fight like hell. So again, MAGA, yes, we all acknowledge that he said peacefully and patriotically. He also said fight like hell or you're going to lose your country. So what did those people do? Did they go to the Capitol peacefully and patriotically, or did they fight like hell? Is this being peaceful and patriotic while they're beating up cops, or are they fighting like hell with cops? It's not even really complicated as a thought experiment. Peacefully and patriotically would be this, would be the No Kings protest. That would be peacefully and patriotically. Millions of people gathered in cities across the country showing up in support of democracy as they protest a dictator behind the Resolute desk. That would be peaceful and patriotic. This would be fighting like hell. This would be fighting like hell, beating up police officers, using chemical weapons, bear spray, pepper spray, fire extinguishers, flagpoles, crutches, in some cases, riot shields, police riot shields stolen from police officers and then used to beat up said police officers. Smashing windows with said police shields, entering the Capitol illegally, breaking in, well before any allegations or any conspiracy theories that doors were just opened and they were allowed in. Not fucking true. Lie number 5. The election was stolen. January 6th was justified. 60 plus court cases rejected fraud claims, including Trump-appointed judges. Trump's own DOJ and DHS found no evidence of widespread fraud. State officials from both parties certified the election results. No evidence has ever emerged that could change the outcome. A lie repeated often does not become evidence. Those are the facts. Period. Lie number 6. J6 defendants are just political prisoners. Defendants received due process, jury trials, and appeals. Many pled guilty after reviewing overwhelming evidence. Sentences are based on specific crimes: assault, obstruction, conspiracy, or weapons violations. And courts distinguish between nonviolent trespassers and organized violent actions. Period. Political prisoners are jailed for beliefs. These defendants were jailed for their actions. Period. Period. Again, political prisoners are jailed for their beliefs. These defendants were jailed for their actions. Lie number 7. J6 was no worse than other protests or riots. J6 was the only time in U.S. history a mob violently disrupted the constitutional transfer of presidential power. It directly targeted Congress, the vice president, and the Electoral College count. The goal was to stop certification, not express a grievance. Context matters. Attacking democracy itself is categorically different. The right's argument has been, it's no different than BLM. Of course you'd say that because you're all fucking racists. These people right here, the overwhelming majority of these people right here, without question, the overwhelming majority of insurrectionist, traitorous rioters who showed up on January 6th because Donald Trump told them to were white men. A lot of those same white men are fucking racists. Period. A lot of those same white men would say that BLM protests of 2020 were just as bad. No, they weren't. Only racists would say that. What was the number? Like 94% of the protests in the Summer of Love were peaceful. We also know that the BLM protests in 2020, there were paid agitators there. We know that. The Boogaloo Boys. We know that. We know what happened that day. And all of you racist maggots want to say, oh, Minneapolis was burned to the ground. Portland was burned. Were they? No, they weren't. That's your defense. So your claims that 2020 was Antifa, the Summer of Love was Antifa. So Antifa were there burning buildings in 2020, and Antifa were here at the Capitol. Which was it? If your claim is that January 6th was Antifa, then how would that track? Why would the president? Why would the president pardon Antifa? He has since called Antifa a domestic terrorist organization. Why would the president? Why, pray tell, would the president pardon Antifa? Yeah, Umbrella Man, exactly. It was a Boogaloo Boy. Exactly. Lie number 8. Everyone there is being treated the same. Funny. Prosecutors use tiered charging. Nonviolent misdemeanors often receive probation or short sentences. Violent offenders and organizers received years-long sentences. The justice system differentiated conduct, not ideology. J6 was spontaneous. It's one of my favorites. Militias coordinated well in advance using encrypted apps, like Signal and others. Weapons and gear were staged nearby, including stores of firearms, specifically in hotel rooms in Virginia that they found through investigation. Leaders planned movements, timing, and objectives. You have the video of military formations. Why would the Proud Boys, why would other people who were there that day have zip ties? Why would they have bulletproof vests? Why would they be geared up for riot? Why would they have face masks? Why would they have oxygen? Courts found premeditation, not chaos. Lie number 10. Talking about J6 is just political theater. January 6th, investigators established legal precedents on obstruction of Congress. It reshaped election security, Capitol security, and extremism monitoring. It remains relevant because the same false claims continue to be promoted. Ignoring lies doesn't neutralize them, it entrenches them, which is exactly why we're talking about it, which is why we're going to continue to talk about the Epstein files. We're not going to let the lies win. Okay? We're not going to let the lies win. Bottom line, J6, one of the worst, most documented events in U.S. history. Tens of thousands of hours of video, thousands of sworn testimonies, hundreds of convictions, bipartisan certification of election results. The largest lies persist not because evidence is unclear, but because acknowledging the truth threatens political narratives. That's the fucking truth. I've got more to come. I've got more. Don't worry. I've got more. Hey, Drew.
Hey, Steve. I just wanted to point out that the current president of the United States love language is plausible deniability. He loves to throw a statement in his speeches that his people can point back to and say, "Oh no, that's what I meant. That's what I was trying to say," when the rest of the speech could be the complete opposite of that statement. You know, like the good people on both sides. You talk to any of these maggots, they'll point out the one line where he says that he condemned whoever was there, right? He says that in one line, while spending the rest of the speech kissing their ass and saying how great they were and how much he respects them.
Stand back and stand by from the debate.
And then, of course, the same thing in the Jan 6th speech. He threw in one line about being peaceful or something, when the rest of the one was him lighting a fire under them. So we have to always remember that's what he does, and that's why there's so much, because he can always point back to that one statement, and then everybody will say, "Oh yeah," and you have to look at the rest of the context. I just wanted to point that out. You're doing a great job, Steve. Sorry about that. You're having so many difficulties today. You do not deserve it.
It's all right, bro. I appreciate you, friend. Have a good day. Be safe out there.
Thank you again, buddy.
He's right. I mean, yeah, you got it. Plausible deniability. Again, and that's what people hold on to. It's really, really simple. I'm going to say this again. I've said it multiple times. Yes, those of us can acknowledge, those of us on the left, those of us who are even on the right that were disgusted by that day, can in fact acknowledge that the president said go peacefully and patriotically. Yes. And he also said fight like hell or you're going to lose your country. The question is then, what did they do? Did they go there peacefully and patriotically? Like the walk to the Capitol was peaceful. Sure. They're wrapped in American flags, which I guess would make them patriots, right? But when they got there, what did they do? Is this peaceful and patriotic? Is 140 police officers being beaten up peaceful, or is it a fight? Was bear spray being used patriotic and peaceful, or was that fighting like hell? Chance to hang Mike Pence, is that peaceful and patriotic, or is that fighting like hell? It's a question that you can answer. And again, when you have these conversations with your MAGA friends, if you're going into right-wing spaces, make them answer that question. Make them answer. Yes, we agree that he said peacefully and patriotically. Can you agree that he also said fight like hell or you're going to lose this country? And they will. They can't deny that because it's in the same speech. And then say, what happened when they got there? Were they peaceful and patriotic, or did they fight like hell? Which is it? They won't answer that question because they can't. All right. Here's a little bit more. How the lies spread. November in 2020, Stop the Steal goes from talking point to mobilization. On election night and days after, fraud narratives surge as counting continues, especially mail-in ballots. Claims move fast on social media and friendly outlets. Legal filings begin, but repeatedly fail to produce proof. Pattern later summarized by multiple courts and analysis. On November the 27th of 2020, a key Third Circuit decision rejects Trump's Pennsylvania effort, emphasizing that accusations require specific allegations and proof, and saying we have neither here in these court filings. Rudy Giuliani famously said, right, well, we don't have proof, we just basically think it's a lie. We think it was stolen. Late November to December, lawsuits and Sidney Powell Kraken-style claims proliferate. Judges and later sanction proceedings highlight fantastical and or unsupported assertions. This goes back to the summer of 2020 in July. Start to prime the pump. The only way I can lose is if it's fraud. The only way I can lose is if Democrats cheat. Why were they in D.C. that day? It's a simple question. Why were thousands of people in D.C. that day? They were told to come there by the president because of Stop the Steal. Why were they in D.C.? MAGA, that's a question for you. Why were they there? And when you say they were there to support the president, okay, they were there to support the president because of what? Because the president believed the election was stolen? It wasn't. So again, why were they there that day? And why did they go to the Capitol and fight like hell because the president told them to? We know that they listened because 3.5 hours later, when he asked them to leave to go home, they did. After he said, "We love you. You're wonderful. You're very special," is the quote. "We love you. You're very special." After they beat up 140 police officers. But you back the blue. Okay. In December of 2020, the legal path collapses and then pressure shifts to institutions. On December 11th, the U.S. Supreme Court rejects Texas v. Pennsylvania for lack of standing. Texas can't sue over how other states run elections. Mid-December, as courts shut doors, narratives increasingly pivot from "the courts will fix it" to "state legislatures, Congress, the VP must act." This arc is detailed in the J6 Committee's final report and the later federal indictment narrative, meaning that, well, the states will fix it. We just want the states to be able to address it. We just want the states to be able to look at it. We just want the states to chime in. Well, no, the states don't get to chime in.
Hey, Steve, hold on a second.
Chimed in. Yeah, Shane.
Leftist Linda has already commented in the chat that she is insults make it easier to report. So mods, mute and block Linda Leftist.
Yeah, Leftist Linda, you can go by now. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Mute and block her right now. Sorry, yes, Steve, I had to get up here to tell you that.
It's okay, bro. I appreciate you. She's always been problematic. No doubt about it. I appreciate that, friend. Anything else to add?
91 times he said fight like hell. He said peacefully once. You can fuck all the way off. And by the way,
there you go.
For you maggots in the chat, I'm a registered fucking Republican and an ex-fucking Mormon. You are a traitor to this country, and you ruined the Republican Party by supporting a fucking insurrectionist, traitor, racist, fascist, isolationist. Have the day you fucking deserve, maggot fuck.
Shane, tell us how you really feel, bro. I appreciate you, my friend, very much. Have a good day. Be safe out there, okay? Take care. Be safe. He's right. He's right. He's right. Again, I will go back to say, if Donald Trump had handled COVID responsibly and did not lie to the American people and had doubled down, I will give him credit for warp speed. I will give him credit for that. And doubled down and said, we are the United States of America. We are going to handle the C-19 response better than any nation on earth. He could have sold branded MAGA Patriot masks. He could have stood in front of the American public every single day and just said, we are the best. We're the greatest country on earth. We're going to have the best response. We're going to save the most lives. We're going to get shots in arms faster than any nation on earth. He could have easily fucking done that. If he had done that, he would have won the election in a landslide. But he didn't. Instead, he lied to people. He fucking lied. Similarly, if he had just accepted the results of the 2020 election and gone about his day and then gone off to the sunset and played golf, no issues. J6 would not have happened. J6 would not have happened. Period. That part, MAGA, you guys can't accept. Or you're right. Don't throw out the pandemic handbook that Bush and Obama had. Correct. It's really simple. If he had not lied to the American public about the severity of C-19, lives would have been saved and he would have gone down as a hero. But nope, couldn't do that because it was on his watch. and he could not address anything negative. Instead, he just lied. Again, if he had not lied about J6 or he had not lied about the 2020 election, J6 would not have happened. Brian Sicknick would still be alive today, as would Ashley Babbitt and others. But nope, couldn't do that. Late December 2020 through January the 5th. Quote, January 6th is the last stand. In late December, messaging intensifies around the Electoral Count Act on J6. Claims become more absolutist. This is our last chance. All these subreddit communities, these Facebook groups, that was their claim. J6 is our last chance. Our last chance for what? Our last chance for what? Okay. The morning of J6, the fraud narrative is repeated publicly again as the crowd gathers. Per the federal indictment, knowingly false claims are used as a key tool to drive pressure and action. And then during the attack, the story splits in real time. While violence is underway, competing narratives form instantly. Patriots are here saving our country. It's Antifa. It's a false flag. It's just a protest tour. Those framings become the seeds for years of myth-making. Again, think about this. Patriots came to D.C. on January 6th. Patriots came because they were standing up for their president. But when these patriots, who were insurrectionist, treasonous, and riotous traitors, beating up police officers, they didn't like the way that looked. So suddenly became, it's Antifa. It's a false flag. And then that turned into, it's just a protest. You're right, Reeb. Stop the steal. The rally was called Stop the Steal. Stop the steal. Who's stealing it? Again, what is this? Is this peaceful and patriotic? Or is this fighting like hell? Which is it? That was my stomach growling. I'm fasting, by the way. Yes. So again, you're right. What was being stolen? It's pretty simple. Okay. That continued for years. The 5-year anniversary is today. In 21 and 22, after arrests and charging, quote, political prisoners, framing arises. These people were political prisoners? Really? Attention shifts from what happened to how defendants are treated. You know, what's interesting, MAGA, is that everybody involved, everybody that was arrested and either convicted and or confessed themselves, you know what they were given? Every single one was given due process. Every single one. Our country is really founded on two basic principles: a peaceful transfer of power and due process. They were given due process. Yes, I'm drinking lots of water. I have to balance it or I'll be peeing every 10 minutes. Due process. People who were charged with violent crimes, again, beating up cops, 140 officers were beaten up. They were given due process. The overwhelming majority of them were white men. Are black men on the streets of America given due process every single day? Fuck, they aren't. Are brown and black people given due process every single day? Nope, they're being fucking targeted. Are the immigrants who are attempting to assimilate into our society, who are literally just trying to make a better life through their system, for themselves and their families, literally following the law, requesting asylum, waiting for their hearings, and they're just being rounded up and shipped out? Are they given due process? Nope. But these angry, mediocre at best white men who believed a fucking lie, who are beating up police officers, 140 of them, pepper spray, crutches, flagpoles, fire extinguishers, tasers, batons, brass knuckles, metal padded gloves, every single one of them was given due process. Everyone was given due process because that's what our system demands. Okay. The January 6th committee report lays out a comprehensive factual record and the evolution of the pressure campaign about how suddenly these people are political prisoners. Really? Really? Okay. From 2023 till today, defamation cases and new incentives for, quote, careful phrasing. April 18th, 2023, Fox settles Dominion's defamation case of $787.5 million, a massive financial penalty because they aired false election claims. They fired people on their staff, most notably Tucker, for the perpetuation of lies that still exist today. The reason Fox did not want that case to go to trial was obvious, because they would have to admit that they knew that they were lying. Your hub of information. Fox News settled a lawsuit. Maggie, anybody care to respond to that? Why would they settle that lawsuit? Why is it that the Dominion sued them? Because of Fox's talking heads, their programming, were perpetuating lies about the machines. Mike Pillow, Italian satellites, Rudy Giuliani, etc., etc., etc. But again, nothing to see here, right? Okay. August of this year, Politico reports that Newsmax settles with Dominion for $67 million with stage payments, again, tied to false claims about the election. So Newsmax and Fox, two of the primary sources for media for our friends on the right, both settled lawsuits based on lying about the 2020 election that brought people to D.C. because the president perpetuated that lie, supported by news agencies like Newsmax, like Fox, and others. They would have lost their lawsuits if it went to court, obviously. They settled so they wouldn't have to expose Discovery, brought people to D.C., and we got what we got that day. Do you understand, MAGA? Do you understand the information that wormholed into your fucking brain started from the president of the United States because the pussy-ass bitch that he is couldn't accept the results of the... Hey, Donald Trump, if you're listening, you're a pussy-ass fucking bitch. A traitorous insurrectionist fuck. Fuck you. I'm Steve. I go live Monday through Friday, every day. Monday through Friday, 8 till noon Eastern time, right here. Fuck you and all you insurrectionist traitorous fucks. They wouldn't have been in D.C. that day. Dominion would not have had to settle a lawsuit if they didn't perpetuate the lies. Fox would not have had to settle a lawsuit if they didn't perpetuate the lies. It's really, that's restricted. Of course I'm restricted. We're going to get taken down today, friends. It is what it is. I don't care. I don't care. This was arguably the worst day in American history. I put 9/11 right up there because of what happened that day. But this is the worst day, and it's because of lies. It's because the American people were lied to because the president lost an election. Again, a fundamental principle of our entire government is the peaceful transfer of power. Period. That's it. The entire thing is built on that and due process. That's it. We've decided we've given up certain things so we can have those things. Like those are our principles. We've accepted the fact that we're going to allow hate speech because we believe in freedom of speech, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Whatever those lines are, right? Here we are. It comes down to due process, making sure that people have their day in court, that they're presumed innocent unless proven guilty, and the peaceful transfer of power. And because MAGA and the fucking cult could not accept defeat, this is what happened. Simple. All right. Also, new reports and dueling political narratives continue, even depositions and transcripts, Jack Smith's testimony. And we have plenty of evidence to convict this guy. All right. Let me see what else I've got here. I want to get into that. Let's talk about Nancy Pelosi. I don't want to make this about Nancy. I want to make this about the Speaker of the House, because that's the argument. Social media posts and political figures have claimed that Pelosi planned and or orchestrated the attack as a false flag or staged event. There is absolutely no evidence to support that whatsoever. None. This is from PolitiFact. The attack was a real violent breach by supporters of then-President Trump aiming to stop the certification of the 2020 election. Pelosi was the target of the rioters because Donald Trump told them so. Claim that Pelosi blocked the National Guard from responding. A widely circulated claim asserted that Pelosi refused to let the National Guard defend the Capitol. Fact checkers have repeatedly debunked this. The Speaker of the House, again, this is from the AP and also from the National Guard's website. The Speaker of the House, again, not Nancy Pelosi, but the title, the position. Mike Johnson, Kevin McCarthy, Paul Ryan, none of them. The Speaker of the House does not control the D.C. National Guard. The authority sits with the President of the United States for D.C. and governors for states. The President has the ability to delegate authority, yes, but nowhere in the chain of command is the Speaker of the House. Again, MAGA. Those are the facts. Not some handsome silver-haired guy sitting in a screen on TikTok telling you this. These are the facts. You can go to the DC Guard's website. It will give you a clear depiction. In fact, let's just do it right now. Hold on. Hang on one second. Let me do this. This is from the DC National Guard's page, on the About Us page. Today, the National Guard remains strong with more than 2,400 soldiers and airmen available to execute its mission. DC National Guard soldiers and airmen resides within the District of Columbia, Maryland, and Virginia, and are proud to be from the communities in which they protect and serve. The DC National Guard was formed in 1802 by President Thomas Jefferson to defend the newly created District of Columbia. As such, the commanding general of the DC National Guard is subordinate solely to, wait for it, MAGA, the President of the United States. This authority to activate the DC National Guard has been delegated by the President to the Secretary of Defense and further delegated to the Secretary of Army. The DC National Guard, wait for it, MAGA, the DC National Guard is the only National Guard unit out of all 54 states and territories which reports only to the President. I don't recall reading anywhere in there where the Speaker of the House is anywhere in the chain of command. President, SecDef, Secretary of the Army. See, here's the thing. This is what, MAGA, this is what you guys have, this part that you don't really understand. What you're claiming, what you're arguing, what you're trying to defend is that the Speaker of the House has more constitutional authority than the President when it comes to being the Commander-in-Chief? Really? What do you mean it's new by executive order? It's not new by executive order. It's the law. It's not new. So what you're saying is that Nancy Pelosi on January 6, 2021 had more power than Donald Trump, the president? That's the claim that you're making? Okay. Hey, just give me 1 second. Okay. Again, delegated by the president to the SecDef, to the Secretary of the Army if necessary. Somebody then explained to me, once again, poor coverage. I'm good, Sam. Poor coverage by the media, by not addressing that fact enough. But the DC National Guard, I'm good. I just wanted to let you know. Inside baseball, don't worry. The DC National Guard has nowhere in the system is the Secretary of State, Speaker of the House. I know, I hear you. I'm good. I might have to end a little bit early, guys. I'm having a little bit of a medical thing. So I think I'm going to pull the plug right now. I'm getting yelled at by my moderator team. I'm fine. I love you guys. I don't know who we're going to raid, but just go do your thing. I'm sorry we had to end early, but I've